Hey, welcome to the Krusty Kast. Or
Yeah.
should I say, the final episode of season one of the Krusty Kast.
Woo! Yay!
Been
Yay!
a
Hooray!
it's been a
Yeah!
long journey.
It has.
But
You
here
could
we
say
are.
you could say it's been an overly long journey.
You could
Yeah.
say it. You also could not say it if you feel like it.
hmm
How has it been like a year yet?
Not quite a
Not
No,
year.
we
quite.
started in August, didn't
I
we?
think it was either
Oh yeah,
August or
it's not
like
even a year.
July. Yeah.
No one can say we took too long.
Almost a year.
Yeah,
Not really.
we did this in a timely fashion,
Yeah.
or
I
timely
mean,
enough.
granted, getting to like even season four will probably be like another 4 years, but let's not think that.
Yeah, let's not dwell on that. On
For
the
now,
We
upcoming
gotta.
pain.
let's just go around the horn and
Yeah.
introduce ourselves like we always do.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I am Jasmine, the one who draws Goober Grove, the one who started this whole idea.
hmm
Hmm.
I'm Maddie. I am. Yeah. Watch
She
out.
does all the OBS stuff, which
Yeah.
is helpful because we'd be up Paddle Creek without shit otherwise.
Genuinely, yes. I remember the one
Yeah.
time I tried to do it. It wasn't great.
I'm Gwen. I was in the show too. I was in the episodes.
Yeah.
Gwen's the one who keeps the discussion on track normally,
True.
Yeah.
and I'm Randall. I'm also in the episodes, and I do the background art for the
Yeah.
show.
You do a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and none
Well,
of the guest stars could make it because they died in a
Yeah,
marching
sorry.
accident.
Oh.
but they'll be back at some point, I'm sure. It's a
Mhm.
cartoon.
Yeah, you know.
But we're all here today to send off our beloved, our humble beginnings for the Krusty Cast
Mhm.
as we just talk about season one, all the good things, all the bad things about it, how it weighs on future seasons of the show, all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
So, if we're going to do that, how are we going to do that?
I don't
I
know.
think my plan is like we start off talking about like a stylistic analysis of season one. What are the trademarks that make a season one episode feel like a season one episode? We'll discuss
True.
like the characters. We do have a middle segment.
Hmm.
And afterwards, it's about ranking the episodes and giving our personal top tens and maybe handing out some awards along the way.
hmm
And also giving an excuse to talk about the myriad of fucked up incidentals across this season.
It's true.
So, I think we should just talk about what season one's just all about, what its whole deal is.
Do we use a bubble transition here?
No, we don't need bubbles where we're going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, so like a few of the things that immediately stand out to me about season one, besides like the art style being different because it's the sole season to use cell animation and whatnot, like, one of the big things that stands out to me is it feels like a shockingly ambitious first season of a show. Like,
Yeah.
there's lots of weirdly high concept episodes in season one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, you do have your more basic ones that are just here to, like, establish the setting and characters. You have your jellyfishings, your boating schools, all that sort of stuff. But you also have stuff like SB129 and Sleepy Time. You have plots like I Was a Teenage Gary and Neptune's Spatula. Like, these don't feel like things you do in your first season.
Yeah, like
which I
No.
think is like,
I was watching The Simpsons season 1 recently with another friend group, and yeah, in comparison, a lot of those episodes are just like, oh, the Homer goes for Christmas shopping. Bart goes to school and sees a bully. Marge also
Mhm.
goes bowling. Uh, I
Lisa
just,
is sad.
yeah, Lisa
And that
is.
did have like Bart gets sent to France and kidnapped by criminals.
Oh yeah, and forced to make wine. Yeah, we saw that
That
one.
could have happened to SpongeBob.
Yeah.
that could have happened to SpongeBob.
His French narrator friend would never do that to him, though.
Yeah.
But didn't season one also have the one where like Bart jumps over like the gorge?
Oh,
Oh,
I
that was
haven't
season
That's
seen that
two.
season
one yet.
2.
But
Yeah.
Homer did attempt suicide in like episode 3, I think.
God, yeah.
We have yet
We
to
need.
see any SpongeBob characters
We'll
attempt suicide.
we'll
Yeah,
talk
that
about
Not
would
this
be
yet.
more
really a
on
bit
the
off.
Not
talk about this
yet.
more on the Homer cast. Don't worry.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of like concepts just explored in this season. Like they could have just played it safe, like just introduce your characters, some simple premises. You don't need to go
Yeah.
too out there. I
And
mean,
that's sort of what. And
yeah,
like, you do have episodes like that. Like, for every SB129, there's also a The Paper.
I think that's a
But
bad example.
Yeah.
Just like not just about an episode in general, but just like a grounded episode because that episode is not grounded.
I
that's
would say
true.
It
like
is. It's very basic, but it's not very grounded.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I meant. Like, just a very basic paint by numbers sort of episode of SpongeBob.
the ones where they're not afraid to only have like two characters
bubble
in an
stand.
episode. Bubble
But
Stand,
I
I'd
do
say, is a
think
pretty
that,
good one in that regard.
yeah, Opposite Day.
Yeah.
Just a good episode in general.
Wow, there's a lot of episodes this season where it's just like SpongeBob and
SpongeBob,
Squidward
Patrick, and
and they're
Squidward. Yeah.
yeah in the neighborhood, just like a lot of those ones, and
Yeah,
those ones
I
are
don't mind that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say that's like
Like,
a pretty good chunk. Oh, excuse you.
Okay, go ahead.
If you say so.
like, uh, yeah, like, I know, I think even compared to like seasons 2 and 3, season 1 stands out to me as distinctly experimental, but
Hmm.
like, I think something that also balances out its experimental, like, concepts and whatnot is just, despite having, like, these weird concepts, you also have generally more relaxed and easygoing pacing, and I think this gives some of these episodes a very distinctive vibe.
Honestly, I think it works in the episode's favor a lot of the time, but there's a good few episodes where some like speedier pacing would have helped it a lot more.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a few
Like,
sleepy episodes.
but not
Yeah,
Sleepy Time. That one's shockingly, like,
that one's really good.
it's
Yeah,
really good.
because a pretty major trait about season one too is the famous season one overly long time wasty gag that we always like to bring up.
Yeah. Our good old SpongeBob licks his lips for 30 seconds. I think that's the worst example, but it's not the only one.
Is it the
There
worst
are
example?
uh,
Are there worse ones of jokes that just go on way too long? I feel like we've had to have
uh,
talked about a few.
does ripped pants count? Or is that
I
No,
mean,
like no?
I
like,
don't
it
think
needs to
it
be like
does.
a single gag that goes on way too long.
Yeah,
Like,
not like a
every
runner.
joke in Muscle Bob Buff Pants is kind of the same,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't say it's the worst.
Hmm.
Like,
Single joke, definitely. Huh.
yeah.
Because and yeah, back on the pacing things, like even episodes we really like SB129, has that really long like bit in the prehistoric times that doesn't ruin
Yeah,
the episode, but it's something you just kind of check out during.
Yeah.
yeah. But like, I do find the sort of more relaxed pacing of season one to be a more sort of double-edged sword because I do think there are a lot of scenes it works well for. Like, I think season one, when it wants to do like something atmospheric, is really good in that regard. Like,
Mm-hmm.
episodes like Rock Bottom and again SB129 stand out a lot to me in that regard. It feels like,
If
yeah,
season one, like, I'm trying to imagine a different version of season one where it did have like the pacing and the speed of season two and three, and a lot of like the episode concepts on display here. I don't know how strong it would be if it were like that.
Right.
yeah, I get
It
what you mean.
feels
Like,
it's very unique to itself.
Mm-hmm.
but I do feel like even right out the gate, it doesn't have much of that early installment weirdness. Like, again, talking about The Simpsons, season one of The Simpsons is all sorts of weird compared
Yeah.
to later seasons. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, SpongeBob season one feels like SpongeBob. It feels
Yeah.
like the show knows what it wants to be right out the gate.
Yeah, it's very
Even with,
realized.
yeah, like, most of the characters feel like themselves. The general, like, most of the settings get established here.
Mhm.
The joke writing and, like, there are stylistic things that differentiate season one, but it doesn't feel like a completely different beast from seasons two and three and whatnot.
It's very recognizable. There's like things
Yeah.
that definitely changed over time, even like from season
Yeah,
one to two, but it's still like it really feels like the show has a solid identity at its core already.
Yeah, it knows what it
yeah,
is.
We keep like bringing up Simpsons because it's like the ultimate like iconic weird season one. There's no like Homer embarrassed that his family is acting annoying at a party episode for this season.
Right.
Right.
yeah, like, the weirdest season one trait is probably a couple early episodes that seem to sort of suggest Sandy as a romantic interest for SpongeBob, but even
Yeah.
then, like
That's
halfway through the season that gets dropped.
Yeah.
It's
right.
really just like Tea at the Tree Dome and Ripped Pants in that regard. And even then it's not like super explicit. Like it's not like those are weird ass SpongeBob episodes.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that stood out to me. I feel like season one's humor is pretty character driven. Like, obviously, a lot of the joke, but I feel like seasons two and three go for more like gag driven affairs, while season one has just sort of just lets their personalities bounce off each other and let the humor come from that. I feel like Naughty Nautical Neighbors is the big example of that sort of episode to me,
Yeah.
where it's just like let the characters' personalities shine through.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a pretty good amount like that, like Employee of the Month, Walking Small,
Yeah.
Pizza Delivery even. There's a lot of like characters in a scenario and they just talk to each other. And that's like my favorite
Yeah.
type of comedy, so I do really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there are some places stylistically where I think season 1 might be my favorite season. Like I do think quality wise it's not the best. That's probably season 2 or 3, but
Right.
in terms of like the general style, I do like season 1 quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
Like, there are a few episodes like Sleepy Time and Culture Shock, which basically just exist to do a bunch of small character vignettes.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I appreciate,
That's
frankly.
really good. You
It,
I
kind of have
love
to.
I love
yeah,
how the characters just kind of develop over the course of the season because we see that
Mhm.
like pretty heavily during the start. A lot of them are like really one note and missing some notable traits that they'd have later
Mhm.
down the
Yeah, we can
line.
talk more about that if you want to like go more in depth on the characters, like one by one, like the main
Yeah.
characters.
Sure.
Do we feel like it's time for that?
Yeah, I think
I feel like
so.
we can start that.
All
Yeah.
right. So, SpongeBob, starting with Sponge. I think this is a really good season for the Bob himself.
Yeah.
I
I
feel
agree.
like they do a really good job like balancing out the different sides of his personality, his general naivete, his general eccentricities, and good-natured
I
goofball and what. But like, I feel like they do a good job adding in elements where he's like, you get to see episodes where he's petty and vindictive, like Employee of the Month, and you get to see like his desire to be seen as cool in episodes like Muscle Bob Buff Pants. You get
Yeah.
episodes sort of show off his social awkwardness, like I don't know what's
Scaredy
a good example.
pants.
Scaredy
Yeah.
pants,
Scaredy
Kinda.
yeah.
Scaredy
Pants.
pants.
Talent show. Or it's not talent show.
Culture
Fucking.
shock.
Yeah, culture shock.
I think we get some good range for SpongeBob in this season.
I
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
think
feels very fleshed out.
he's really consistent. Like I'd say out of all of like the season 1 characters as they go along to other seasons, I'd say that SpongeBob kind of keeps his like range from start to finish throughout all of season 1 and like I want to say through
Yeah,
all of season 2 also.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Hmm.
some
in
bits in
general, I
season
think.
3 where they kind of lose the thread a little bit, but
We'll see.
yeah, we'll
He
Yeah, we'll
see.
feels
see. Yeah,
incredibly, yeah.
he's a very
They know what this
well-rounded.
character is about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
He-
I think that's what really like makes him so like distinct and likable. And it's probably one of the like one of the bigger pluses of the show, one of the big strengths of having such like a lead character that's so defined and like has like so many like different traits that all like come together to make him feel very like I don't want to say like realistic necessarily, but he feels like very like authentic as a character, and it's very easy to like enjoy him because of that. He feels very likable.
Yeah.
yeah. I guess the big episode I was thinking of for the social awkwardness was Tea at the Tree Dome. That feels
right.
like the big highlight of that side of his personality to me.
I also noticed that this season doesn't have like as strong an emphasis on like his fry cooking stuff as like later seasons. Well, it's
Yeah.
definitely there, but it's only
Yeah, I feel
like
Yeah,
like
a
like
few
pickles.
episodes. Yeah, there's Pickles, there's Neptune's spatula, there's Help Wanted. I'm trying to think of another example where it's just kind of like a focal point. Maybe Karate Choppers too, towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Karate choppers. Uh. Huh.
But that in season 1, it just kind of feels like a thing he does and not like
S-
something he's defined by like he
Yeah.
would be in
yeah.
later seasons. Which I think is interesting. It gives SpongeBob just like a lot more to do this season, I think.
I feel like
Mm-hmm.
season 1 is sort of the peak of my ideal SpongeBob Patrick dynamic of SpongeBob is naive but not stupid, Patrick is stupid but not naive.
For
Hmm.
sure.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I feel about their dynamic in season 1.
And is that a lead into Patrick? Can we talk
I
about
think
him?
so.
I
Yay.
want to talk
I
about
think
Patrick.
Patrick has an argument for being the MVP of season 1 to me.
I think so.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're all in agreement on that.
like Patrick's just a delight this go around. I think this is kind of the peak of the mountain for Patrick. Like, not that he doesn't have good material later on, but I really like chill big brother a- person you ask for advice even though he has no idea what he's talking about sort of
Yeah,
character. And like, I think he does a good job, like, single-handedly elevating a bunch of episodes just for how good his performance is. Like,
Yeah.
episodes like Suds, that's the big one that comes to mind for me because I feel a lot of what makes
Mm-hmm.
that episode good is just Patrick.
Yeah, he really like gets the ball rolling there.
especially if
Yeah,
you consider that Suds could have very well ended up being like a really generic, forgettable episode. Like
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Patrick angle of it just really puts
Yeah,
it
there's
into
like
its own.
how many like cartoons have episodes where a character is sick and it's just really like generic and boring and kind of gross, but instead it's like Patrick's like well-meaning, wanting to help, but also being like a complete idiot and kind of pushy and just like not knowing what he's doing, but being so assured that he does.
Yeah.
Really like brings it together.
Yeah. And like you get this sort of thing in a lot of episodes. Like he's great in Tea at the Tree Dome. He's great in like Hooky, I think could be seen as an example of this.
Yeah, where
Like
he's persuading SpongeBob into all kinds of like situations that just like get them both in like deep shit.
yeah.
Same with like Sandy's rocket too.
Yeah.
That's like all
Mhm.
Patrick's doing.
Hmm. He's a good instigator.
He is.
If you like if we're talking about Patrick, we should talk about Valentine's Day, which I think is like the most like later Patrick adjacent Patrick appearance in the
Yeah.
season. It kind of
Yeah.
sets the
Yeah.
scenes of like loud, obnoxious, ruins everything Patrick.
But even there, I think they handle him pretty well.
Yeah, like in this
I feel
instance,
like
it's very
Mhm.
I
it's
feel like
very like
the
well
one
done the
scene
way they
where
work up to
Patrick
it.
tries to rationalize to himself, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes
Like
it's
Yeah.
the thought back, and all the
it
incidentals just come walking in with their gifts from Sponge.
it,
That's a
it felt
really good scene.
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
felt like a
Yeah, it
build
is. It
up.
really adds a lot to the episode and really like ties together. I think it's like interesting, like the way like characters develop in shows over time. Where like after Patrick kind of hit this like high of emotion, it kind of just becomes regular to him. So they don't need this whole like, oh, Patrick gets worked up and up to this, and there's like the whole scenes of him like backing down and then getting wound back up. Later on, like this is just how Patrick is all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is known as I think there's like a TV trope for it because it happens to characters a lot like Ned Flanders and stuff. I think it's
Yeah. I
called
don't know
like
what it's called.
bad character writingization.
I think it's
Yeah.
called like Nedmaxxing or something.
It's called
Yeah, that sounds
Nedmaxxing.
right.
Fuck. Okay. Uh.
But yeah, like Patrick's just even at his most intense moment, there's like a build up to it. It's not just
Mhm.
like he's this big agent of chaos. He's just like this guy who wants to enjoy himself. He's really impulsive and he's not very smart, but there's like a reason he's doing the stuff he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess Nature Pants is our other big Patrick blow up
Yeah.
moment.
I was gonna
I'd
mention
say
Nature Pants.
that's the one that's like the most kind of tenuous there. Like he
Hmm.
does kind of turn on a dime for seemingly no reason,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I think it still works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's obviously in a lot of distress at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but before Patrick started Ned Matsing, he was doing a lot of really good stuff in season 1, and I think we've kind of talked about it at length at least like
Yeah.
every episode for like the last 10 episodes, but there's
Because
a reason
Patrick's
for
just
it.
it's because Patrick rules and he gets the best dream sequence in Sleepy Time also. At
It's
least I
true.
think so. He just seems so content.
Well, we've talked about season 1 Patrick at length for like the 20th time. So why don't we talk about the other of the big 3 here?
Yay.
Our good friend Squidward.
Squidward.
Okay.
Woodward.
Yeah, so after talking
Squidward.
about Squidward as in SpongeBob and Squidward as in Patrick, we're talking about Squidward as in Squidward. I think this is a pretty solid Squidward year. I don't think it's his best year. We're coming up
Hmm.
on that, but like
Yeah.
it's pretty good for Squidward.
I will say,
I
like, of all the characters in the show, I feel like Squidward's the one who changes the least over time.
I
Mhm.
yeah,
agree with that.
Like maybe like the ways they use him are different, and like the characters around him change, so that impacts him a lot. But, like Squidward himself feels very consistent throughout the whole show.
Yeah. He kind of
Really,
came out fully formed. I think. most
Yeah.
of
He
it.
came
Yeah.
out the womb being like, I hate my job and I love playing by bad
Yeah.
music.
I mean,
Well, you
it's
know, yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
it's just more credence into like the a probably made up in my head fan theory that Bikini Bottom is just like hell and Squidward is damned there for eternity, where he doesn't change, but the things around him do, and he suffers greater and greater punishment as time goes on.
Yeah.
But I love Squidward this season. I think some of the best episodes are Squidward episodes.
Yeah, for
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Hmm.
He's
Also
just a
some of the
really great
worst ones,
character who
but
Yeah.
contrasts the rest of the show so well and really like there's a reason he's probably like
yeah.
the most popular character of the whole show and like in general.
Because
Yeah.
he's like the I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. He's like the only stable adult type character in the show because all the other main ones are like really exaggerated. And I don't think we're quite at the point where Squidward's vanity is like really over the top.
No, yeah.
Mhm.
Like he does paint and like do clarinet stuff, but he's not so fully full of himself yet.
Yeah.
But he is still like a bit like
Yeah.
he makes himself the headliner for the talent show.
He makes a
Episode
wax
All
probably the
of his
most
statue
like
of
things
himself.
Squidward narcissism episode.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's it's a really good season for Squidward. We haven't gotten like his rival yet, which is going to be
Hmm.
really exciting when we get to talk about Squilliam. I genuinely can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we we get a lot of Squidward and SpongeBob episodes this
Which is
season.
Oh
good.
yeah. I stand by it that I think Squidward and SpongeBob is like the single most important character dynamic on the show, and
Hmm.
For
clearly
sure.
they established that right out the gate. We get pizza delivery, we get employee of the month, we get like Fools in April.
We get the paper.
Yeah, we get the paper.
For better or
Reef
worse, we get the
blower.
paper.
Reef blower, I guess.
Also,
And also Patrick's
I was
there a
a
lot of the
teenage
time.
Gary is one, if
Yeah.
you
That's
want
the
to be
Hmm.
thing. There,
technical.
like, I feel like Squidward also gets a lot of the worst episodes, like
He
jellyfishing
does.
and Teenage Gary, but whatever.
Yeah.
But he makes up for it.
At
Yeah.
least he at least he wasn't in the chaperone.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was the second SpongeBob. Anyway.
And something I noticed looking at season one is like, I feel like most of the time when the show moves away from SpongeBob's perspective, it latches onto Squidward.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
I'd say like Naughty Nautical Neighbors, SB129,
I was like thinking that there's a
Fools
lot
in
of episodes that feel
April.
like Squidward's like the real main character of the show. Like Pizza Delivery feels like mostly like Squidward centered, with like being about him reacting to SpongeBob than about like SpongeBob himself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
SB129.
like, make no mistake, in the vast majority of episodes, I'd say SpongeBob's the perspective character. If they ever shift away from SpongeBob, most of the time it's gonna be to Squidward.
And
Hmm.
yeah, I've noticed there's a lot of episodes these seasons where it's SpongeBob as a plot device and it's something that Squidward is it's something he has to get through. It's like Opposite Day or Bubble Stand
Yeah.
where he kind
Yeah.
of does feel like the other main character of the show because he's the one who's like enduring the situation going on here, and SpongeBob and Patrick are kind of the perpetrators, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very Squidward heavy, but it's not Squidward's best, at least not yet.
Not
Yeah.
yet. We'll get there.
Like, I
Do
don't
we?
think there's any episodes that are, like, from Patrick's point of view besides maybe Valentine's Day, but even then, I
Mm.
think that's SpongeBob
No.
POV.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
Yeah,
that's
no.
SpongeBob. Like, Patrick's still a major character. He's just not the perspective character.
Not
But you
yet.
know who is the perspective character? Mr. Krabs. Like,
Oh,
exclusively in
yeah.
Squeaky Boots, but
Yeah.
he gets
I,
to be it that one time.
let's just
This is
talk
a
about him.
transition to talking about Mr. Krabs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Krabs is probably one of the most. I'll say it. I think Mr. Krabs is the most inconsistent character in this whole
Yeah.
Yeah.
season.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Because there are
I
times
feel
when
like
he's great.
Mr. Krabs feels a bit underutilized in season 1.
Yeah, he has
Doesn't
a
have that
shockingly
many,
like low amount of like important appearances.
Uh-huh.
Also, I think
like,
part of it is like we
Squeaky Boot.
talked with SpongeBob about how like multi-layered SpongeBob is and how he has a lot of range. It feels like Mr. Krabs has like a lot of different roles, but they don't really mesh together that well.
They don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like in one episode, like something like Arg, where he's incredibly greedy and he's kind of the villain of the episode. But then you get something like Pickles, where he doesn't have any investment in like his financial situation, and
Yeah.
he's just fully dedicated to helping SpongeBob out of the kindness of his own heart, seemingly.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
it's
you have
so.
episodes like Squeaky Boots, which are somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
And he's is Squeaky Boots like the biggest Mr. Krabs episode this
Absolutely.
season?
Like, it's the
Yeah.
big Mr. Krabs point of view episode to me.
Well, no, I just mean like in general.
Yeah,
Is
it
Well,
it its
is.
most important episode?
yeah, I think
I think
so.
so.
Like, next to Arg, I think this would beat it out. Yeah.
We really, and then we get something like Karate Choppers where Mr. Krabs is just an enormous asshole the entire way through, independent of like money or whatever. He's just an enormous prick the whole
Yeah.
time.
Like
Mhm.
I've brought this up before, but when I was a kid watching season 1 on my like big box set, I would always skip, I think it was Arg and d- d- d-
Karate
and
Choppers.
Karate Choppers because I was just scared of Mr. Krabs.
Yeah.
He just feels very like your dad is mad at you.
Yeah, yeah,
A,
exactly.
a
Mr.
little
Krabs
too real.
definitely feels
Hmm.
like the character who's the most. He's written to fit the needs of the story. Like, I do
Hmm.
feel like.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's a lot of episodes where he doesn't feel like Mr. Krabs. It's just like how he's written in a story varies from episode to episode,
Yeah,
depending
because
on the story they want to do.
then you get other episodes where Mr. Krabs is just a fun-loving guy who's going with the flow, like in Fools in April and Scaredy Pants, where he's just having fun doing his jokes and whatnot.
Yeah.
He's all over the place this season. They haven't they haven't made greed his like biggest trait yet.
Mm-hmm. They
And
kind of
I
haven't like unified his character at all is the main problem.
yeah, and I feel like it's one of the rare instances where making his character focused on like one thing actually helps him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I guess
he's
Squeaky Boots might be like the best look we can have of him as a complete character because there's like his greed, him like trying sort of trying to be well intentioned, but also kind of being like an asshole where like everything he does has to be kind of like underhanded and self-serving.
right.
Yeah.
Doesn't really
And
like come together very elegantly, I guess.
we should also probably
Yeah.
talk about the him and Pearl because that comes up a few times over
Oh
the
yeah, Pearl's in
season.
the season. We want to transition to Pearl.
Yeah.
Do we have
I
an
don't
ep-
like
Pearl
we'll
is
have much to say about Pearl.
Well, I was
yeah,
just like lumping her into the Mr. Krabs segment.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fair, yeah.
because there's not
Just
much to say about Pearl.
there really
it,
Like,
it
isn't.
it's more so Mr. Krabs' dynamic with her that's like it's to serve his character because Pearl's just frankly one note this whole season, and you could probably sum up her whole deal in like one sentence, but like we see that Mr. Krabs genuinely cares about her,
Hmm.
but like
Hmm.
he's
yeah.
an enormous cheap asshole too.
Yeah. Like, again, Squeaky Boots, which is the de facto Mr. Krabs episode. episode. It's like he wants to do good for her birthday, but he's still gonna cheap out on her present.
Yeah, you got him
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
bargain. And giving her and her friends tap water.
I love that joke. Free
Where
water on the house.
he's definitely trying to be a good dad, but
Yeah, I feel like at least with honestly with Pearl, his like relationship with Pearl is probably the most consistent part about him.
mhm.
Yeah.
He's trying, but he's kind of like he has this inherent evil to him.
Yeah.
It's true. There's a reason when Pearl moves out, she's not gonna keep in touch with him after, I'm sure.
Mhm.
With Pearl, it kind of just feels like I feel like the chaperone is kind of when they realized they didn't really know what to do with her. Like I remember reading like an interview with Steven Hillenberg where the big thing from like the prototype to the show proper he noticed is we didn't really use Pearl much.
Yeah.
It
Thing I've
really
noticed, this isn't the only show. I know Family Guy with Meg is like a big example. It feels like a lot of like shows, especially of the like 90s, early 2000s, the writers like include a teen girl character because that's like a type of character you include. And like, yeah, we get another girl character, we have like a teenage character, and then they realize they're all like a bunch of adult men in the writers' room and they don't know what teenage girls are like or do or how to
Yeah.
make her funny. So they just kind of like don't do anything with her or just make her like the most generic like stereotype.
and
Yeah.
this
I
will
feel like even
continue
to
over
this
the
day,
duration.
I feel like even to this day, Pearl feels like the most underdeveloped main character.
For sure.
Yeah, by
Yeah,
like
she's
a
definitely
mile.
the weakest main character if you want to even like consider her that.
Like I
She
think
really
she's
never like gets
officially
out of the route
considered
of
one,
being like
but
a 90s cartoon teenage girl character. She has like better episodes later on. Like I really like Mall Girl Pearl from season like 9.
Uh-huh.
yeah. I
Yeah.
love whale watching. I think that's a good Pearl episode, but
It takes like decades to get there, and even
Yeah.
then, she doesn't feel like fleshed out as a character really.
Mhm.
yeah. I feel like honestly, one of her most fleshed out episodes might be Bossy Boots from season 2, but I still don't think she's like a super well-rounded character there.
Yeah.
It's
hmm
more like
Yeah,
a
no.
good
She, she
moment
just
for her.
she just kind of gets to do something more interesting to be like Mr. Krabs' daughter and be like, "Daddy."
Yeah.
It's just a little telling that her best episode isn't for like another 8 seasons.
Yeah.
hmm
But
Oh, Pearl.
we've we've covered all the no, we haven't covered all the big
No.
ones because we need to talk
Sandy.
about Plankton now.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Plankton.
Sandy.
And Plankton.
Okay, misogynist. Sorry. Sorry.
oh.
We haven't talked
Can
about
I
Mrs. Puff either.
Yeah.
Yeah, Plankton.
What order do we want to do them in? I feel like Plankton's a better like transition
Yeah.
from Mr.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Krabs.
I was trying to keep it attached
Yeah.
to Mr. Krabs here,
Yeah.
and I got accused of being
So
a misogynist.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Anyway.
Yeah, this is a great Plankton season, I think.
yeah. He
Mhm.
is sort of like an event character at this time where he has his 3 spotlight episodes and that's what most of Plankton's doing in this season is, but like I
They're
definitely
good
think his like
episodes.
yeah, they're
Mhm.
all good.
Yeah.
He
I
also feels very
definitely think
realized, and
like
it does help that, yeah, all his appearances are very, like, insular and plankton focused. Like, there are other appearances, like, him and, like, they're just little joke ones, like the vignette episodes, like Culture
Yeah.
Shock
yeah,
and Sleepy Time.
But like
yeah.
when Plankton's a major focal point of it, it's always guaranteed to be
A good time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a very fun character. It's just very straightforward, having just, like, this cartoon villain who just wants to, for the most part, and this season does give him a little more variety than honestly most by giving him an episode where he wants to do something other than steal the formula or, like,
Yeah.
have a marital dispute,
Yeah.
which they do a lot later on.
Mr.
There's
Lawrence is just
something I've
great.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mr.
I
Lawrence
was
really sells this character so much with his Mr. Lawrence voice.
I
I
was
do.
gonna say that I do want to kind of do a side diversion and just talk about how great the voice actors are in this
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
season
for
in
sure.
particular.
Voice cast is so good in this.
Like they nail it. They know when to go over the top, but they know when to keep it low key, and I think that that's
Mhm.
really important that we're not at the era of SpongeBob where everybody is shouting.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not. Yeah, it's a very good
I think
delivery. And whenever Tom Kenny does his really deep voice, I laugh so much.
Or
there
whenever
is
Tom
so
Kenny does his
much
French
deep.
voice.
There's so
Yeah.
much deep voice SpongeBob this season.
There
I
is.
wish I
There
made like
is.
a counter for it, but
Hmm.
oh
Oh,
well.
Feels like
next
it's at least
time.
like once an episode pair at least. Almost.
Hmm.
It's either the deep voice or it's the French voice. I
He does do the
don't think there's
voice
anything.
a weird
Uh,
amount of times.
Uh, I think one of the big things I noted about Plankton is I feel like this is like a very manipulative season for
Hmm.
Plankton,
Yeah,
where
he's
like
Yeah.
very.
like
Yeah,
he
like
tricks SpongeBob into a friendship just to get closer to the formula. He uses SpongeBob for land development. He
Hmm.
quite literally manipulates SpongeBob in his debut episode.
It's a very it's a we see in later episodes that Plankton is just a hyper intelligent inventor guy,
mhm.
and that's like his strong suit. But season one really leans into the fact that he's like a really clever asshole that knows how to
Yeah,
take advantage of people.
he's
Yeah,
very crafty. I honestly never really like thought about it, but yeah, he has like a modus operandi here.
he feels very much more like genuinely evil in season one than later
I was
seasons.
thinking that he gets like really mellowed out over time. I feel like we get more episodes about him being like emphasizing how pathetic it is that he can't get the formula. A lot of more of like his home life and his like awful marriage and like oh Plankton adopts a dog and it's wholesome. But like
Mhm.
starting off, he's just like a straight up villain who's evil and uses SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the thing. The SpongeBob and Plankton dynamic is like the most prevalent one that Plankton gets, and it's just so Plankton can consistently like trick him.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess
and
this is just
I
the
think it's
trajectory all cartoon villains go through. Is that after you make enough episodes where the villain loses, you have to realize that like this guy kind of sucks, and you just kind of pivot to that. He gets like Team Rocketified.
But
Mhm.
see, the thing about Plankton is like both times he's in his featured episodes at least he's tried to steal the formula. He's gotten really close to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's gotten very close. Like, and even in Land Development, he like won, and then SpongeBob just like changed his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I think he bounces off SpongeBob so well because of like SpongeBob's good-heartedness and naivete plays very well into this sort of story for
Yes,
Plankton.
he just bounces off of SpongeBob's innocence, and they just work really well together.
And
Yeah.
and I guess that's why I really like Plankton in the movie because movie Plankton feels a lot like season one
Hmm.
Plankton in that
Yeah, a
he's
Mhm.
lot of
got
people
a
like talk about the movie and how weird it is. Like, oh, why did they make Plankton so evil? And like, it is weird, especially like as this show goes on past the movie, more than it was like way more than it was ever intended to. Plankton like gets a lot more sympathetic moments, but like movie Plankton is honestly pretty close to original Plankton.
Yeah.
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 I don't think any of like the first three seasons gives us a point where we're supposed to like sympathize with Plankton.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like season
Well,
3 gives us some in like the algae's always greener.
yeah.
Hmm. It's kind of the first
Just a
Plankton
couple.
sad boy episode.
But
We'll get there.
yeah, on the subject of just Plankton so we can Karen is not really a character in season
No.
Yeah,
1. Like
Karen.
Not yet.
she's there, but she's there with an asterisk. She's only in Plankton and fun, and she's not even a character in
She doesn't even have a
Plankton.
name yet.
She
Mhm.
says SpongeBob.
Yeah.
She's named in the credits, but she doesn't get her name said in the show until season 3.
Hmm.
Let's
Right.
just say Karen
Sad.
heads are gonna be losing in the classic seasons. Karen
And
doesn't become fully formed until like season 11. We have a while to go before we have strong Karen.
and I
Yeah.
feel
Sorry.
like now is the time we talk about Sandy. I didn't forget. I promise
Talk
I
about
didn't
woman.
forget.
Okay,
Yes.
so Sandy. Sandy is like weird in that I feel like she's the main character it takes them the longest to get the hang of, but like once they do get the hang of her, she gets some pretty great episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Like,
I've ragged a lot on Sandy over the course of this season, in the first
Yeah.
half at least.
yeah.
Like her awesome episode where she goes to Texas to save Bikini Bottom.
Yeah.
And her good friends Kyle and Phoebe are there.
We're not
And
talking.
But like,
We're not talking about this.
Yeah.
okay.
Can't
But
bear
like,
with another Sandy movie discussion in my life.
that's fair. But like, yeah, as I said, early on, they kind of start her off as like a romantic interest to SpongeBob, but it's clear that's just not the direction Steve Hillenburg wanted with this show, and they kind of drop it pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So we
Mhm.
kind of get a couple episodes where she's just like the rational foil to the silly plot going on, like Sandy's Rocket and Nature Camp.
yeah,
But like by Muscle Bob Buff Pants, it feels like they're figuring her out.
yeah. Early on, she's kind of like '90s cartoon cool girl, where she's like, oh, she's cool and nice, and she's smarter than all the boys, and she like lifts weights, but she's
Yeah.
so smart. I feel like by
Mhm.
Yeah.
Muscle Bob Buff Pants, we get more of like impulsive, pushy Sandy, and like she really comes into her own like Texas and karate choppers. And
Yeah.
at that point, she just feels
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is my friend Sandy.
Yeah, it's
It's like,
Sandy.
oh yeah, she has problems too.
Yeah, I feel like Texas is like her strongest episode this season, and frankly, just one of her strongest ever. Like,
Mhm.
Hmm.
I think it's mostly competing with Sandy, SpongeBob, and the Worm for me in that regard.
Right.
Yeah. The thing about Sandy that's always so interesting to me is how they like really latch on to her scientist pick after the movie. In this season, she like only really does that in Sandy's Rocket, which is a really weird episode in that it happens so early. It's like the only
Mhm.
Yeah,
like Sandy science episode, and she's like
like,
such a non-factor in it, but
When
it's like, wow.
when's the next episode where any of that's even remotely explored?
I don't know.
Because it
like
just feels
SpongeBob
like
Tentacle Pants. No, Patrick Smart Pants, I think, is the next one.
so we don't
Yeah,
we
that's
don't
so
even
far.
get 1 and 2 and 3. So there's just like this weird isolated incident episode in season 1 where Sandy's like a scientist, and for like the rest of the Hillenburg era, we don't bring it
I
up
guess
again.
technically you could argue Wormy, but like,
Hmm.
I mean, those
I
are just
feel
like
like,
her pets or something, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think one episode that's interesting to point to in like Sandy's development in the season is Suds, because it feels the real transitory period between like straight man, boring cool girl Sandy and like actual Sandy, where she's still playing like the kind of role she does in like Nature Pants, being like a foil to Patrick being irrational and stupid, but like I feel like maybe it's just because I like Suds more, but I feel like Sandy has more of like a proactive role in that episode and like leans more into her as like a character instead of just feeling like she's
yeah,
just the voice of reason attached
Yeah.
Right.
to a
I
squirrel.
feel like I know we said this during that episode review, but just to restate it, we need more Patrick Sandy episodes and Patrick Sandy conflicts.
We
I love
do.
Yeah.
Patrick Sandy. It's such a fun character pairing.
They should have had SpongeBob get kidnapped in the movie.
Yeah, get kidnapped by French people.
Yeah.
But Sandy's just like thinking back
She
to
gets
really
good once they
early
figure her
Sandy,
out. It just takes them a minute.
thinking back
Yeah,
to really early Sandy, that's like awful that happened to her.
Yeah.
Like she was fine in Tea at the Tree Dome. She was kind of basic there, but like the episodes where it's like we're gonna tease her as a love interest for SpongeBob. Like I
Yeah.
really liked Rip Pants, but that is not a good episode for Sandy.
yeah, I kind of like
No.
it in
Yeah,
spite of
exactly.
Sandy's characterization.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm glad that they do eventually figure her out as the season goes on, and Pets
Hmm.
is probably one of her best episodes in that regard.
For sure.
Speaking of women, let's talk about our favorite character this season, Mrs. Puff.
Oh yeah.
Mrs. Puff is like, I don't think I can call her the MVP of season 1 because she doesn't get used much, but unlike like Sandy and Karen and Pearl, it feels like they know exactly what she's gonna be right out the gate.
Yeah, it's
And
so
Right.
she
interesting
is
that like throughout this discussion and throughout talking about the season, we've talked about how like how many problems it seems like they've been having with like getting the female characters right, but Mrs. Puff like comes out the gate pretty much fully formed and like good condition, and they kind of
Mhm.
like develop her more with like more of her like getting arrested and her shadiness, but she feels very like good right
like
from the
even in
start.
her first episode, she tries to get she's like, "You can cheat! You can
Yeah,
cheat!"
her her desperation is always there. I know, like Steven
Yeah.
Hillenberg, I'm pretty sure has gone on the record saying that Mrs. Puff is like one of his favorite characters, and like kind of saved the show because it helped like satisfy the quota of like school plots without needing to make SpongeBob go to
Yeah,
actual school.
Yeah.
Mrs.
I can
Puff
kind of
is
feel the love for her and how like she's just really good.
She
she's
was a late
she's great.
addition to the cast, but it was clear that they fell in love with her as soon as they had her down.
Hmm.
Just like the addition of like a realistically tired and like beleaguered character, because we got Squidward, but Squidward's like really exaggerated. Mrs. Puff just feels real and like how tired and over it she is with her job,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I appreciate
Yeah.
I
that.
like how she feel, you can kind of feel like the pendulum of Mrs. Puff swinging even within scenes, and like to some extent she's trying to be kind to SpongeBob and understanding, and other ways she's just like desperate and like willing to be underhanded. It doesn't feel like she's inconsistent. It just feels like she's like a realistic person who like acts inconsistently because
She
I really
wants
know how to
to help
describe it, but she feels
SpongeBob
very like
out.
believable.
Where
Yeah.
she feels bad for SpongeBob, but she knows each and every time it's gonna go wrong. It's like Hall Monitor, where she gave him the outfit and like immediately started to regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
Like
has a
again,
good
there's
push and
not
pull to her,
a
which is
lot
impressive to
of
like
Mrs.
pick up on because yeah, she's not a lot of Mrs. Puff.
but she's a character that when she shows up, they're using her right.
Yeah, they really make
Hmm.
her count.
I think
Mhm.
she's my favorite character this season, like very close with Patrick. I think Mrs. Puff is just like the best character by volume, with the caveat that she like kind of barely appears.
True.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also Gary. There's
Yeah, Gary.
Gary.
Gary
He
had
Oh
sleepy
counts
yeah,
as a
time.
Gary.
main character.
Gary,
He had
sleepy
sleepy
time. I feel
time.
like really did establish like the tone for Gary. Like they probably, I'm not sure if they would have done because like later on as the show goes on, they do more of like Gary being like an independent character and kind of being like smarter than he appears, and do jokes where like Gary like steals a car and shit. And I have to wonder if they like have leaned into this as much if they like didn't have the seed of sleepy time planted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not. I mean, for most of the episodes, Gary's just like a pet.
Gary's
He did get
Yeah.
a
character is
focus
literally
episode.
just Mao.
Yeah,
He is just
Yeah.
essentially.
it's kind of just a set piece. He's just a character for SpongeBob to talk to in his bedroom. He did get a
He's
focus episode. He got teenage.
Oh yeah.
oh, did he?
He did get
He became a
teenage.
teenager.
Mhm.
That's not even a Gary episode. Gary's barely in it.
It has Gary in the title. That gotta
We'll
count for something.
we'll get a lot. We'll get plenty of better Gary spotlights, but season one's just not interested in like developing Gary at all,
No.
Yeah.
I think.
They gave him his moments in the vignette episode, so maybe they did. They also gave him like culture shock, giving him his slam poetry. So like maybe they
That's
did kind of
true.
have this
Yeah.
idea that Gary's kind of like an intellectual held back by being a snail.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I guess we can also talk about a handful of like the supporting
Like
Yeah.
characters.
Larry. Let's talk
I
about
was thinking
Larry.
about Larry. I want to talk about
Oh
Larry, even though I don't have
yeah.
anything to say about Larry. He sure is in this
I think
season.
the big thing about Larry that stands out to me is just how much SpongeBob doesn't like him.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a lot of a he's like a big rival in this season, honestly.
It
Yeah.
takes me back to when I was watching the commentary for Plankton, and Doug Lawrence is talking about how there are some things about Larry that they couldn't make work. Larry's just
Yeah.
like Larry's a glorified incidental this season, pretty much. He doesn't have
Mhm.
much going on for him, but he is really funny when he does appear, though.
He does. He kind of just exists to like emasculate SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either that or have an awesome Yowie seed with King Neptune.
He did have Yowie.
The amazing nautical Yowie, yeah. Mermaid Man and
We have,
Barnacle Boy exist.
Oh
This
yeah,
is
Bubble
they're
Boy.
very
only in mediocre episodes. IMO. I've gone
yeah.
off enough about like I think in the Mermaid Man and Barnacle
We're
Boy 2 episode how I do not like these characters as in on a few levels.
I like Ernest Borgnine
I like
Mhm.
Ernest
and Tim
Borgnine.
Conway.
Yeah.
I think they have good vocal performances that are kind of wasted on the material.
I feel like
I
Ernest
kind of yeah, it's harsh, but I feel like they just should not be in the show. Or
Yeah.
like should have been like heavily retooled into I don't know, maybe like fish superheroes or I don't know. I don't
yeah,
like their old man jokes. I don't
we
like how confusing they are.
we should probably talk about or at least briefly touch on like the prototype designs for him, where like Barnacle Boy was like a detached head on like a fully wood body. And his name was
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
Barnacle Bill. Would that have been better or worse?
It
Yeah.
could have been worse because it would have been even more like another distracting element to these characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like on the topic of importance of kind of important season one characters, we need to touch on Bubble Bass at least.
Yeah, I feel like Bubble
Ah.
Bass is a weird case because I feel like Pickles really builds him up as like
Mm-hmm.
this rival character to SpongeBob, and like they keep him in the picture. Like he's also in Fun, but like he also completely disappears after this season until season 8. So
After
Yeah.
I,
They
Pickles, he
do bring him
just
back into
doesn't say
prominence for some
anything.
reason. He's basically a different character.
Mhm.
I think
yeah.
literally the only time between season one and like season was it 9 or 10 when they brought him back?
Like season 9's when they brought him back properly, but he appears in season 8 in Plankton's Good Eye, but like that's it between pre-movie and post-sequel.
I think
Or season 1 and post-sequel.
the only time Bubble Bass has appeared in anything between them was like the fucking lights, camera, pants game.
Mm.
And it's
God.
just they had unlike Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, I do think that these episodes could have benefited from having a little more Bubble Bass, giving SpongeBob like an actual like rival to
Mhm.
bounce off of, which I guess they
Yeah.
sort of do with Plankton, even though he kind of has to share him with Mr. Krabs.
He could have been a
Yeah.
main character.
Yeah,
Could have
it's
very easily been a main character, really. I could easily picture the world where he like they just, kept using him and had him antagonize SpongeBob more.
Mhm.
it
Yeah, Bubble
we're at
Bass
the
is the character that could have been, and he sure does become
yeah,
for
we're at the point
worse or
now
for worse.
where the monkey's paws curled in and Bubble Bass is more of a presence in the show. But I think during the
Yeah.
Hillenburg
He's
era,
more of a presence in the show than like Sandy at this point.
See you then,
Yeah.
comic book guy.
mhm,
Fuck. Uh,
I don't want to say it's a missed opportunity not to have him in more of season one, but I feel like I don't know, a few more appearances would have done some good.
yeah.
At
Yeah.
least as many as like Squilliam gets.
At least let him like talk when he shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Can we talk about the Flying Dutchman? That's like the
Oh
one other
yeah.
like secondary character.
Yeah. I love the Flying Dutchman.
Me too.
Yeah.
There's not really much to say about him. He doesn't have much of like it's not really much of like
Yeah.
a character, I feel like, so much as like
Well,
concept of a funny ghost guy, you know?
yeah, well,
Mhm.
it's something to be said about like how we also talked about Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy and how their inclusion suspends disbelief in the show and doesn't really feel like he fully fits there. But I think the
Hmm.
Flying Dutchman is an example of that and like being done the right way.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
guess I never really thought about him as like human interaction. He just feels so like
Oh yeah, he is a
he's the
guy.
pirate ghost.
He's a ghost. He's like a dead sailor or whatever.
Yeah, he is a fucking
Yeah.
human. For some reason, I never
Well,
like put that together, didn't I?
and
It's just
typically in all of his appearances, he's like giant.
yeah.
Kind of equate him to being like the size of a regular human if you think about it a
Hmm.
little bit.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
His
he's a
size can vary
fantastical
a bit, but he's a ghost, so it's fine.
yeah, he's a
Yeah.
fantastical element to the show that I think adds to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it helps how much moderation they use him with also. Like he appears
Mhm.
twice in this season. It's only like at the end of the episode. It's kind of a twist.
Right.
It's not like they're giving him like whole episodes of him just like hanging out with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Look, it's like ghost hosts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, even in like, I guess you could argue about Shanghai even, but
Can we
he
can
is
we
still
also
sort of a surreal thing. But that is a big Dutchman episode.
I also
Yeah.
want to talk about season one's biggest casualty and someone that we also don't see a lot of going forward. It's poor
Scooter?
Scooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Scooter. I'm gonna miss
Scooter.
Scooter already. Scooter's basically a
Mhm.
secondary character in this season. He's like as prominent at least as like Flying Dutchman and Larry. So like
Yeah.
Hmm.
he's
I
just such a
love
pleasant guy.
Scooter.
I wish they had like using him and made him like a proper character.
Yeah.
I mean, he's there until season 3. He gets to be in the party episode.
Yeah,
So
he gets more appearances, but like
He gets to
I wish they'd really
experience
like
High Tide.
brought him to prominence. He's so he. I just like him. I just like seeing him around.
Mhm.
Yeah.
he's a force for good, and maybe we didn't deserve to see him much going forward. I also think now's the time we address him. We had to talk about him. It's Fred.
Yeah.
Fred.
Which one? There's like 8 of them.
Yeah,
Just a
that
couple.
exactly. I think now is probably the best time to talk about season one's absolutely like crazy use of Fred.
Yeah.
No
Mhm.
season uses Fred like season one does because at first he's not a vehicle for my leg jokes. I think the first my leg joke he gets is when he's thrown out of the restaurant in Arg.
Mhm.
Or at least that's the only one that's attributed to him, but like
One in Karate Choppers is.
oh was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know him as the my leg guy yet though.
No.
Because we
Yeah.
also know him as like 20 other guys in the restaurant and the chaperone.
I really love that he's every incidental in that episode.
Well, every incidental in the first part of the
Oh,
episode, the
yeah.
other half is bowl cut prom date incidental.
Yeah.
But Fred, occasionally not voiced by Doug Lawrence. Occasionally there's like 20 of him.
Mhm.
He's clearly the favorite incidental of the season. They just loved using him
Mhm.
until later seasons where they also love using him, but in a less amusing way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He becomes not an
Yeah.
incidental. He
He's a
becomes a
little bit
accidental.
weird one manny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Accidental.
I, I said this before. I think the issue with Fred is like you have the my leg gag and it's funny as like a fun little thing in the background you notice, and it becomes funny when they start doing subversions of it, and it does culminate in his spotlight, but then it's kind of like you've established him as a character, and from there on it
Yeah.
kind of becomes apparent that just a guy shouting my leg isn't that funny
Mm-hmm.
No,
on its
because
own merits.
like we've said before, he doesn't do his catchphrase the same way he did in the classic years because he's just screaming it at the top of his lungs and
Yeah. It's not like the
it's
sample that they use. He's just saying it.
that's why we were laughing because you were
Yeah.
using that sample.
Yeah. None of
Have
these
we
a
burned
character. It's not funny.
have we burned through all of the major
Uh
characters?
Is
Are we
Neptune
gonna
a major character?
he's I don't even
I
think he's
guess he's
really
like
much
a
of a
recurring.
factor.
No. Like, he comes
Yeah.
back in, like, what, season 5 or something? 6? I don't remember.
He comes
Yeah.
back in
Flash of
Battle for Bikini
Triton.
Bottom.
Flash of Triton.
Yeah.
Flash of
Is that
Fright.
really his next appearance after
I
this?
think so, yes.
No. His next
Oh.
appearance is. Wait, is it? It's technically in SpongeBob versus the Patty Gadget, I guess.
Oh yeah.
I
I don't
you've
remember
hit
what
the
that
big
is.
time. You've hit the big time when your second appearance is like a cameo bit in one of the season 5 shorts episodes.
I always. King Neptune is weird. He simultaneously feels like a more and less prominent character than he is, if that
That's
makes any
Yeah.
because
sense.
that's because
I'll be honest, I'd
movie
never
King
think of him as a
Neptune.
character.
That's because
Yeah.
movie King Neptune just kind of
Overshadows him, yeah.
yeah, kind of confuses the lore, and that King Neptune's actually like an important character to the story in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, are there any other characters we were forgetting? We had...
Uh,
I don't know.
I feel like that's it, unless we want to talk about Squidward's house.
No,
I don't want to talk about Squidward's
Jellyfish.
house.
I never want to talk about his house again. Fuck you.
I mean, he's
Okay.
wow, everybody's so mean to me this episode.
Sorry, that's our middle segment. It's just being mean to you over the course of the episode.
Okay,
And also the
I,
intertitle zone.
I can live with that. Oh yeah, are we at the middle segment now?
Are
I think
we?
so.
Yeah.
All right,
Here
so it's
we
middle
are.
segment time.
The intertidal zone. Made by some Steven Hillenberg guy.
Don't know him.
Yeah,
In
but it has
1989.
sea creatures, so I guess it's sort of related to SpongeBob.
Yeah. Oh, there's a guy.
Oh shit! So this is the Intertidal Zone, comic made by SpongeBob creator Steven Hillenberg, like a decade before the show premiered.
Yeah.
It was like his first interest to his first attempt to combine his love of marine biology with his love of cartooning. And so it's basically just this like collection of marine biology facts presented in funny, goofy cartoon sea creature character world.
Yeah.
It he really has a striking style in
He
this right here.
does.
Yeah.
I'm really glad this finally like got released, because it's just such a time capsule.
It is.
Yeah.
We some scary designs right there. But
Yeah.
it just makes sense that wrapping up the beginning of SpongeBob, we wrap it up with the beginning of all
Of the
things.
Like Bob the Sponge is not a very major character in this.
No.
He's
But he
just
does
like,
show up a couple times.
yeah.
I would it would have been something if some of these like really out there designs just kind of showed up in the show, like that big
I,
reaction shot up
I
top
love
there.
Yeah.
That's
this
something.
is known as a compound eye.
Uh,
I think that
yeah.
shrimp dude should have been a character in the
If
actual show.
anyone
He
from
does have
this
a lot of
comes
swag.
back, it should be this guy.
Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frankenstein down there.
True. But yeah,
I wasn't
this
aware
guy.
that there was a Frankenstein in this. Now, was this like a personal work, or was this something that he was given out to
I think he
people?
did like release it to some people, like maybe at like an aquarium or something he was working at. Like, I do think it got released to some people, but I don't think it was, like, published big time.
There's Gary.
Hi, Gary.
We encourage everybody, if you haven't, to go read this yourself. It's just,
Yeah.
we just felt like bringing attention to a piece of SpongeBob history here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there
I
he
always felt like
is.
there should be, like, sort of a SpongeBob episode with this general sort of idea of just, like, marine biology facts presented with these funny anthropomorphic sea creatures. Like, we kinda
Mhm.
get a taste of that in Feral Friends, but, like, I think you could do a whole episode like this.
Yeah.
Like, kind of an. I mean, you've already got, like, a Jacques Cousteau, like, nature
Exactly.
documentarian.
You
It
also
just
have a
feels like
guy who
there should
takes
be
pictures of stuff if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, maybe.
But it's a very cool thing that was released fairly recently, by the way. Did we
Yeah.
really not have, like, any of this before,
We had
like, a
some
month
of it,
or
I'm
two ago?
sure. I don't
Yeah,
Yeah,
know.
like,
I've
I
seen
feel
Bob the
like
Sponge before.
Yeah, I've seen
yeah.
specifically a crop of like this right here.
Yeah.
I feel like I've also seen, like, the front cover with the starfish
Yeah.
character.
I feel like Hillenberg wanted to make, like, some kind of short about this, and if he did, I think that would have gone, like, extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So true.
But
Genuinely, Steven Hillenberg feels like he's towards the top of people I wish I could have met.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
yeah,
sure. Lots of respect.
Yeah.
but we've we've said our piece on the season as a whole, the characters, we've had that brief little intermission. So I think now's the time to talk about which episodes in particular that we happen to enjoy or didn't.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been watching, you know which ones we like, which ones we don't, but having them in a definitive order would be a nice little capper to the season.
Yeah. A lot of them have been ties.
Yeah.
We had to sort all that out.
Yo,
Do we have
Gwen, do you want to pull up the tier list?
Oh yeah, sure.
So
So
here
yeah,
we
this
have
is
our
our
Yeah.
average
tier
rankings,
list
just
of, like,
calculated by averaging the scores we gave the episodes.
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you want to just go over all of them real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
why don't we start from the bottom and work our way up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's start with the Scumbob episodes.
The hyper infamous ones that we don't enjoy.
So what do we
There's
think of
two.
Teenage Gary? We already talked about Teenage Gary a bit, but
Yeah.
Teenage Gary is not very good.
why did
No,
we all hate
Like,
it? Was it because it was about torturing an animal?
That's
yeah, a
partially
that
bit.
it.
yeah, that was a pretty big
Like,
part of it.
yeah. Like, as I stated back in my review, I appreciate the ambition behind, like, the concept of the episode, but it kind of feels like it's like the concept is all they have here.
Yeah, they
And
didn't really execute on it.
by the time we get to the fireworks factory, it's kind of underwhelming. A very
Mhm.
mediocre
That's
Squidward
because
house destruction.
that's because he's a teenage Gary for all of like 1 minute before the end
Yeah.
of the episode.
Yeah, there's just a lot of slow setup, and it's not very entertaining setup. It's a lot of like Gary being upset and just like Squidward being kind of like an unlikable
Neglectful.
asshole instead of being a funny Squidward asshole.
Also,
Yeah.
the episode
Yeah.
just looked like shit.
The episode did not look very good.
Yeah.
No, no surprises here. I think this is all of our least favorite for the
Mhm.
season.
I think, like, it's the one episode of season 1 everyone can agree kinda stinks.
Yeah, I think
For
it's the one
sure.
I'd most say is like there's another Scumbob episode, but this is what I'd say is most wholeheartedly bad.
Yeah.
Without any kind of like funny bend to it. There's just nothing here. There wasn't even a cool
Mhm.
lost media scene. That was fake.
That would easily bump it up like 3 or 4 tiers for sure.
Making an 8
I
out
don't
of
think it
7.
would.
Well, maybe then they should add Bibby.
We
God.
we went this long without a Pibby mention. Great
No,
job.
or yes, we mentioned it pre-show. Right, that's right. But not now.
Let's talk about
Yeah.
the chaperone next, the other worst episode. The chaperone feels like a lot less magnitudes of bad than Teenage Gary, but it's still I struggle to think of anything that's good
The
about it.
thing
Um
the thing
it
about the chaperone to me is like I feel like it's a very nothing episode. Like Teenage Gary is sort of actively unpleasant, but it's also a more interesting episode.
Mm-hmm.
chaperone
Chaperone is just like it's just
Chaperone feels like it gets a lot of small things wrong and gets like basically nothing right.
to
yeah.
me the chaperone feels very dreamlike, not just because of all the Freds, but because of like all the stuff with the dummy that SpongeBob has. You got Pearl's arm shrinking spray that's never mentioned again. You've got that big like commotion at the end where people definitely die.
And there's like an
It's
apple.
yeah,
Yeah, there's the
It's
apples.
it's surreal, but not in the good way a lot of SpongeBob episodes early on are. It's in a way that's just like a confusing mess.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a confusing mess, but not even like interesting at the same time because it's also like a really boring like teen girl story written by middle-aged men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
But
has 1,000 things going against it.
it does win the award for the most Freds in an episode though.
True.
Let's hear it for Freds.
Like 50 of them. Woo.
Awesome. So
Awesome.
jellyfishing was it's probably our first episode of the lot where we realized there's a good few in this season that aren't very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a
It's like
bad few, if you know what I'm saying.
I
but
do. So
I think I think Gwen summarized jellyfishing the best in like the pre-show, which is it probably of the episodes in this tier has the lowest lows, but also the highest highs.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the most actively unpleasant of these three. It has the
arguable.
obnoxious 30-second lip slicking joke. And it's
It
just
Hmm.
has like
like
the awful ending and just a lot of like boring characters getting beat up.
yeah, but like
it's a
we
very
get our first
season 8 episode.
but we get like our first Squidward bike explosion. We get the great gag with SpongeBob and Patrick on the phone.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like firmly grasp it if nothing else is an iconic joke.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Yeah, but like it's just not a very pleasant episode.
It's just not very fun to watch as a whole.
Yeah.
Speaking of not very fun to watch, the paper.
I think the paper is probably my favorite bad episode. It's just so funny how it feels kind of pathetic to me.
Pathetic is the best word for it, yeah.
It's so pathetic.
I am like still like the paper defender of this batch. I think it's like whatever. Not like a good episode, but you know, if I'm watching casually I can enjoy it, but
Mm-hmm.
it is kind of just like there.
For
It
for a
Yeah.
is the
rare
paper.
for a rare episode, it's pretty bad. Like
It is a rare episode, isn't it?
Like I
What
said,
was
I
it
feel like they
paired
probably
with?
hit it with Valentine's Day
Oh, yeah.
just because they didn't want people to watch it.
but it's a great episode if you love the
Paper.
vast expanse between SpongeBob and Squidward's house. If you love
She loved the shell
night,
car.
yeah, I do
I
love
love
the
the
shell
shell
car.
car.
The fucking
I think
shell
that
car saves this
it,
episode from a
yeah,
scumbob.
You know what? You're probably saying that as a joke, but I believe that.
No, I
Yeah.
agree.
Oh yeah.
It's also got it's got the guy with the mustache
Oh yeah.
I guess it does.
Fuck. Yeah, it does.
in the really bad meme.
Uh,
See, no,
But
you're reviewing the episode like this, but usually you're
Mermaid
oh,
Man
the
and Barnacle
paper.
Boy 2.
Now, I'll
uh,
be honest, I don't know how this got lower than the original one.
yeah, me
it's because I
neither.
hate this episode a lot.
Yeah.
I think this episode is so
Honestly, I
boring and
think
unfocused.
like I feel like the first one, like I don't know, I think it has its moments and it's
Yeah.
I think it's more focused, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more focused, I
This
think is what
one's
saves
just
it. Like,
like
I think the first one's like unfunny old people jokes, but at least it knows what that it's about, like old people. This one just kind of like
yeah,
has like 2 or 3 plot lines, and none of them are interesting, and most of the jokes are just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
We
also,
did
I hate Mermaid Man
It
and Barnacle Boy so much.
and it has the origami button.
Mhm.
Has the
Paper
fucking
Mario, the
origami
origami
button. That's
button.
what put this in F tier.
it's
It
is
do,
that the is that
it
what we
does have
decided
it does
is
have
the worst
Barnacle
joke?
Boy.
It
It
does
does
have
have
Bobble
Bobicle
Boy.
Boy. It has He Can Snap just like that.
I'm the
Yeah.
only one here who thinks it's a little too low. I like some parts of this episode, just
I
like
I think
standalone
it could be like
Honestly,
a D.
Yeah,
Could be a D.
yeah.
I feel like the
I,
first episode being like a whole tier above this one just feels a little wrong to me.
Yeah.
I rank these based on like averaging our scores for them, so there's like empirical data for this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe because it's like I'm the sole Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy tolerator here.
they're
Well,
fine.
we're out of the terrible episodes. Now we can go to the boring, not very memorable ones. It's Jellyfish
Jellyfish
Jam.
Jam. Woo!
Do you like
The Jellyfish
Stadium Rave
Jam.
A?
Jellyfish Jam was a
Jellyfish.
great minute-long music video attached to 10 minutes of other stuff happening, I guess.
I mean, I think it had like I think the scene at fe- Jellyfish Fields at the beginning had some fun bits, but
Yeah. I think
yeah,
I
it's
said in the
mostly
episode when we reviewed it, like the beginning is strong and the ending is memorable, but the middle is just so boring and tedious.
Yeah, in the
yeah.
middle is like 9 minutes of the episode.
Mm-hmm. I like the
It's
like
So it's just
jellyfishing
like
jokes, and I like the like jokes where like showing tricks the jellyfish can do, and I like the song at the end.
but like the this 8 minutes of SpongeBob just like trying to turn off a radio and the jellyfishes just like stopping him from turning off the radio.
I'm also giving this the most hard to watch with like regards to my eyes
Yeah, oh yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
This one loses a
Those
lot
are
of points
some
on photosensitivity.
flashing. There are some flashing lights in that one.
I'm not even like I don't think I'm even like particularly like medically adverse to flashing lights. I just hate when shows have them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
That's
hear a
because
I
lot
there's
more
feel
about
never
the
this
any
when we
need
do the
same.
for them.
Tasmania podcast.
You can
Is that a
summarize this
problem in
episode's
that
plot
show?
in like 10 seconds.
You could just be
SpongeBob
like
brings home some
SpongeBob.
jellyfish, they dance, and then Squidward gets mad, and then blasts at them, and they have to leave.
It's just like SpongeBob adopts a jellyfish who brings more jellyfish and they're annoying, so he takes them home.
Yeah.
You could sum it up in one sentence.
This is gonna
SpongeBob
be an awesome speedrun
This
category.
could have been like a 1 minute episode, honestly.
SpongeBob is accosted by wild animals. That's the whole
This feels like
episode.
it could work as like a season 5 short.
Yeah, yeah.
It could
It
have,
was
yeah.
born
Also,
a few seasons too early. Let's move on to Muscle Bob Buff Pants, the most average episode of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be funny if
it,
someone like tried to lift up something that wasn't that heavy, but they acted like it was really heavy.
I
that's
I
this episode.
I
I
Which
don't
still
was
think this
think
already
episode
a
like
joke in fucking, uh, what's it
Help
called?
Wanted.
It was one of the
No.
first jokes they made.
Yeah.
it's
Oh
also
yeah,
in
it
Rip
was in Help
Pants,
Wanted. And in Rip Pants, yeah.
but like Like, I think it's fine. There are some jokes that land, but most of the jokes are the one joke, and it's just like it's very average.
It's
It
Yeah, it's not egregiously bad, but it's easy to pick on for being incredibly average and boring.
it's like what I remember saying in the episode. It's the most Fairly Odd Parents out of like the original run of SpongeBob episodes.
Yeah, I can see that. At least it had that sort of funny anchor throwing joke.
yeah.
Yeah, and we did get the funny twink in the bar, the who me guy.
Who loved the fit check?
Now I'm a jerk and everyone loves me.
Yeah, it did
Like,
also have that guy too, huh?
That guy kind of
yeah,
like
it has.
very. If it wasn't for that guy, I don't think anyone would remember this episode. But that guy is very memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a top tier
Uh,
Lawrence voice.
Now we're going right to
and
C tier
now,
with the pretty okay episodes.
Yeah.
Reef
yep.
Blower.
Reef Blower
You,
is 2 minutes long. It basically solely exists to fill time, and it does that job competently enough.
Yeah,
it
I'd say
When
it's one
I
of the more. It's kind of like one of the like boring tier episodes, except it's 2 minutes, so it doesn't take that much of your time, and it has like the cool style of not having any words, which kind of makes it more boring, but also makes it a lot more memorable.
it's
So I can like
they,
expect that they like did something with it. They could have made this. I don't know. They knew that this existed to fill 2 minutes, so they made something kind of
yeah,
quirky.
they knew that Help Wanted was gonna run the episode like 2 minutes short, so
Yeah.
they gave us Squidward's awful salad.
yeah.
Like, that justifies its place in history. I feel
Whenever
like
I
bottom of C
see
tier is perfect for a reef blower.
whenever I see
Yeah.
this title card, I just think of like the GIF of the
Yeah.
episode. Like my brain just parses it. Oh, the GIF is playing. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we got Fools in April, which I'd argue doesn't belong in C, but at the same time, it probably
I feel
does
like
belong in
Yeah.
C.
I feel like C is a good place for it because it's a very mixed bag of an episode.
It is
Yeah.
literally half of a good episode.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of really good. There's a strong. The first half is really strong with a lot of the prank jokes, and then like when it gets into like Squidward's April Fool's jerk dilemma, it
Yeah,
loses a lot of steam. So I
it,
think C is perfect for it.
it's a lot like Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, where it feels like two kind of disconnected plot things in it.
Yeah, I think this is more of like it feels more of a continuous story, but it's a very like sharply bisected story.
It it,
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of energy in the second half, and it ends in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Barnacle Boy
One.
It
1.
has, I don't know, it's
It has
fine.
Pantsless Patrick.
It has
It has.
pantsless Patrick.
It's just whatever. It's old people. It's like mid-tier old people jokes. There's a few funny
Yeah.
lines. There's the part where SpongeBob gets married.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like not. It's not like totally like bereft of humor. It's just the main conceit of like old people jokes is just so whatever to me.
Yeah.
Culture Shock.
Culture Shock is
And
like award for episode I wish was better because I love the concept of like
Yeah.
talent show episode
yeah.
where all the characters do like little acts and there's a bunch of little skits.
It feels
Yeah,
like an episode that sort of hurts from being a season 1 episode. At the same, like, I do kind of love how down to earth it feels. Like,
hmm
oh, the characters aren't putting on, but it is an episode literally about the characters putting on a show. So
Yeah, like, it does have like a kind of interesting vibe being like a down to earth talent show. They aren't like doing like super wacky feats or anything. There's like, oh, it's Plankton's magic trick, but oh, he runs off. He actually literally
It,
disappears, and oh, it's Gary doing slam poetry.
Culture Shock
yeah,
is one of those episodes you remember being a lot better when you were a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
yeah.
That's how I
Like
came
I
the
back to it.
kind of has like a chill vibe with how like it doesn't really have much like urgency to it. It's just kind of a bunch of like event like little skits the characters are putting on for us with like the sort of through line of Squidward and SpongeBob being like, SpongeBob's like, here's my act, and Squidward's like, you're stupid.
Yeah.
I,
But
I
at
think
least
it's like it has its moments. It's not awful. It's all right. I wish it was better.
Yeah.
I think it's an episode that if they did it in like late season 2, it would really shine.
Yeah, like I
'Cause
kind of
I feel
appreciate the
like
down to earth way, but I feel like if this episode was later on, it was a lot more like gag heavy. It would be a lot like better overall.
yeah.
yeah, like something something else I've noticed about season well, I guess this is more of like a season 2 note, which is just like I feel like season 2 episodes spend less time trying to like justify themselves. Like if they want to have SpongeBob be a stand-up comedian or they want to have like Squidward teach an art class or have
Oh yeah,
Plankton and
yeah.
Mr. Krabs be like fast food sports rivals, then they'll just do that without much like setup. And I
Yeah,
don't think season 1 has that
season
really.
1 like Squid Art School episode would have been like, oh, Squidward like reads the newspaper and sees this like ad where he can like rent out the
Yeah.
studio to teach art classes. He's like, oh, maybe I should do that. And it's like until like 4 minutes in until he starts teaching.
It Yeah, you're kind of right on the mark there. Like, say if Neptune's Spatula was a season 2 episode, we get like 1 minute of setup, and the rest of the episode would be like the competition with Neptune. I think,
Yeah.
Mhm. Let's
which
go
could have been
to
fun.
Culture Shock was an episode I remembered being better. Valentine's Day is one I remembered being worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was always scared of Patrick as a kid.
I'm
I
He's
never
so scary.
rewatched it.
I'm a little surprised this is in C tier. It feels more like a B tier episode to me generally.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like
I mean,
it's like I don't think it's like really heavy hitter, but I feel like C tier is like solid episodes that aren't like super like
I feel like C tier is like the episodes you can enjoy casually,
Hmm.
mhm.
but like won't leave a lasting
Yeah.
impression on you.
These
They're
are
Yeah,
not
they're
like if I'm
still
just
like
good.
watching the show, I would watch them. If I'm just watching a bunch of SpongeBob, I wouldn't like go out of my way to watch these episodes.
I
yeah,
I mean, it's got some great Patrick stuff in here,
it
so if you're gonna
does.
remember it for that, or
I
for
love the
anything, it's for
Patrick
that.
character work, if nothing else. I feel like the problem is it doesn't really have like much else. The story is very light.
Well, it does win the award for like the most out of place racist moment in the show.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's why it's C
Funhouse
tier.
is yeah.
I
Sandy's
Super
forget
Rocket.
what we're
insensitive.
talking about. What?
There's like a like building that's really racist looking for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sandy's Rocket.
Sandy's Rock
I
is like
feel like
the episode we were most polarized on, in that I fucking hated it and everyone else loved it.
I didn't love it, I
I
don't
didn't
think.
love it, but I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's like a quintessential, yeah, this is a decent episode of SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Well,
It's really weird how it's like such a strange out there episode that there's nothing really like it for the next like few seasons even, but like it's also such a like kind of average episode.
Yeah, like
it feels like a
I think I understand why this is a fairly like I feel like this isn't even just us. I feel like this is a pretty polarizing episode just in general.
mhm.
Mhm. It's like a
It
lot
I
of
don't know.
weird conceit and a lot of setup for like not that much payoff because it's still season 1, so they don't get like too wacky with it.
Yeah.
It's no goons on the moon.
Bubble
Goons on the
Stand.
Moon is a fucking trip.
Double
Like
stand is
I've seen that episode once in my life. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember it that well, but every detail I remember of it is like, oh yeah, that happens in that
Yeah,
it
like that
makes me
awesome
so
bit.
scared to watch that season. I watched it for the Yuri, and God, let me tell you. Let's talk about Bubble Stand, which is a much more ordinary episode. This is another one
It
Bubble
I
is
kind of
like
say is one of the most average episodes of the show.
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. The technique's fun.
It it's
It's good for setting up Squidward, but
It's
it
kind
is
of
a
like
very
it's a very basic episode. It feels very
yeah,
rudimentary.
yeah,
which makes
but
sense since it's one of the first episodes.
mhm.
Like,
Hmm. Yeah,
but it
it
does
feels like
feel
such
like
a
there's no.
prototype of the show. Not like in a bad way, it
Yeah,
just does feel like there's a lot of room to build from here.
yeah.
It's the first SpongeBob and Patrick do something silly, and Squidward's a stick in the mud until he joins in and suffers the consequences for it.
Yeah, this is like the common ancestor all SpongeBob episodes are like sprung from.
I've been rewatching Phineas and Ferb with some friends lately, and I feel like the best equivalent from that show would be like The Fast and the Phineas, which is a very basic, very formulaic episode that doesn't really do anything wrong. It just doesn't particularly stand out. That's
Hmm.
kind of like Bubble Stand to me. Very
Right.
early, they're getting the basic vibe of the show down so they can do more interesting things with it later on.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like an especially impressive episode to go back to, but I also feel like you sort of need an episode like
It
that to establish your status
it's
quo.
just it's just
It's the
solid.
baseline.
Yeah, it's solid, it's dependable, it wins the award for having Squidward foreskin in it.
Now we go on to Squeaky Boots, which is a much more interesting episode. I feel like this is like it's like the only Mr. Krabs centric episode of the season. Like we have Arg, but that's not from Mr. Krabs' perspective. This is a look into Mr. Krabs' psyche.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It does kind of explore just, like, every angle of his personality in
He's
some way.
selfish, but he's well-meaning, but he's underhanded, but he's like a freak.
He
I
cares
feel like
about his
it's a very
daughter.
weird episode to me. Not like one because it focuses on a character who doesn't get that much focus in the season. Two, it's just not very like SpongeBob cartoon feeling. It's not very like gag focused. It's just more of like comedy horror, given that it's like a Poe story retold.
Yeah.
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 Squeaky
It's an
Boots.
episode that I think is very interesting, but also a little bit sleepy to revisit. But
Mhm.
like, I definitely think there's enough stuff in here that it's worth a watch if you feel
Yeah,
like it.
it's definitely I consider it a pretty good episode, just not like a capital G good episode.
Squeaky Boots
Yeah.
is like one of the episodes I remembered or misremembered being from another season, just because of how much it
Mm.
like explores Mr. Krabs compared to the like doesn't feel super primitive, really. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
and it's a little it's unique in that it's one of the few episodes that's trying to do, like, a parody of something.
I feel like
Yeah.
it low-key feels a bit season 5 to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't exactly explain why, but I don't know, this feels like the kind of episode they'd do
I
in
can
season
kinda get
5.
what you mean. Nature
Nature
Pants.
Pants.
Nature Pants
I
is
feel
another
like
very fabricated episode. Half of it is just
yeah.
boring and annoying, and the other half is really interesting and funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Everything not about
another
SpongeBob is funny.
it's like I think the biggest mixed bag episode of the season. Like I think unlike I don't know, what's the other episode we said was like
Like Sandy's Rocket,
yeah, but like I don't know. It
Fools in April.
feels like yeah,
Feels very
one of
split
those.
down the middle.
But unlike the other episodes that are like split down the middle, this one feels more like just they splice they go back and forth between the good and bad.
Yeah, that's the thing that really I think it kind of puts it above it because it's not like, oh, there's the
Yeah.
good part and then the bad part. There's like the bad part, but they sprinkle good parts throughout it.
Yeah. I
I feel like
mean,
this is
the
another
main
episode that's kind of hurt by like the season one need to explain yourself. They have
Yeah.
need to be like, oh, SpongeBob wants to go to the wild because he's bored of his life, but like it ends up really hurting because it doesn't really feel believable for SpongeBob, even though they try and set it up.
Yeah. But it does have that memorable fire extinguisher joke, so you
It
know.
does have
yeah,
that. There are good jokes in here. There's Squidward missing him.
the 11 minutes joke.
It's not
It's
a solid episode. It's a very shaky episode, but like half
it
of it
it
is good.
yeah, it lands when it does land.
Yeah.
speaking of Home Sweet Pineapple,
So I think I'm a little more positive on this episode than the rest of y'all. Like, I think I have a good time with it. It
I
is
like it.
definitely a bit sleepy in the middle,
Mhm.
quite literally, but like
Oh yeah.
I think between like the montage and I don't know,
it
I just like
I
the
think this is the
vibe on
episode of
this
the season
one.
I honestly have like the hardest time remembering. I'm trying to think of like, oh,
There,
it's
yeah.
the Nematodes episode. There's the montage. Oh yeah, there's the stupid fucking spider scene. Like
then
I have to
there
like remember it piece by piece. It doesn't really stand out to me that much.
yeah, there's
For
not a whole
for
lot of
some
like
reason when I was a kid, I considered this my favorite episode of the whole show, and I don't really feel that way at all anymore, but I do think I still think I look at it fondly.
it's a lot like some of the other episodes in this tier where there's like iconography to it. You it's an episode you most likely have fond memories of when you were younger watching it, but going back to revisit it doesn't stack up as much as you thought it would.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that's fair, yeah.
Many such cases. Now we're going to talk about a peak episode. There's a few episodes I've said that I really hate that the rest of you liked more. This is the episode that I like more than like most of the podcast.
Yeah. It's
I will
I feel
say
like it's a
it's a fun
very
episode.
it's a yeah, it's a fun concept. It's all competent. It's just very dry for better or for worse.
Yeah, it's a
'Cause like
very
it's very
it's weird. It's like fantastical, but also very dry.
Well, and
yeah.
it's also got like we're spending over half of this thing in one location that we never like revisit in the show again.
It's another big like setup episode. They have to like go step by step, being like, okay, here's the museum, here's the spatula. Oh, SpongeBob pulls it out. Here's Neptune. He needs to like look around.
But I feel
I
like it is a very like distinct vibe about it. So
but
Mm-hmm.
if
at
you're
the
looking
same
for that,
time, at the same time, for the most part, this has like some really, really good character stuff in it. It's like peak season one Patrick here.
Yeah, I love Patrick. Really like makes this episode like he does a lot of episodes.
yeah.
It it's an episode that just feels like a lot is happening when it really isn't. Like the whole thing with Patrick, how he gets like killed and resurrected, like the pseudo status quo change at the end where Neptune is like working under SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I still say they should have like stuck to that. That would have been
Yeah.
so funny.
And I do like this episode. I've come around to it like the more we talked about it
Yeah.
last time we talked about it. I'd probably, if I had a say in the matter, bump it up to at least B tier.
I would too, but this is where the rankings fell.
It is.
This is my I don't know
Sad.
if,
Well,
this is
there's
my like
other
in my top
episodes.
10. So like I'm always pro Spatch.
Fair enough. It's also got Tough Guy of Greece, which is my favorite stupid unexplained background thing in any of the episodes.
Like it's an award for that. And
Yeah.
the last C tier episode
No.
is He at the
Good.
Tree Dome.
It how it's an early episode.
I feel
Yeah,
like this has some peak Patrick in it. I love
it
when in
does.
doubt, Pinky out.
It's Patrick's like first outing as like an actual element of the episode.
Yeah,
So
it's
it does
Yeah,
that well.
I feel like this kind of establishes Patrick more than it establishes Sandy, really.
For sure.
absolutely. I do feel like as the Sandy introductory episode, it's kind of weak.
She
I do
spends
feel
so
like
much
I
of the episode just off
overrated it a
screen.
bit, but I don't know. I still like this one, having revisited it like a few weeks ago before this.
I'm kind of lukewarm on it. I just think the like drowning on land stuff is like more unpleasant than funny. I think Patrick is really good, but like the episode overall is kind of bland.
Yeah,
That's fair, yeah.
it's
But I respect
another
the
I do
seed
feel like
placement.
it's an episode that overstays its welcome a bit. I don't know. Maybe they should have made like
I feel
version
like-
of Reef Blower that can escalate a bit more and shaved a couple
Yeah.
minutes off this one.
I was gonna
I-
say I wish that this was the episode that was like 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think, I think this is one of the other episodes I didn't remember too much because I didn't come back to it as much as a kid because I was scared of SpongeBob Patrick die. No.
Oh no.
So I remembered it being like more solid than it was. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
B tier now.
Hooky,
Yeah.
We
Okay.
get to a really interesting one.
The
Hooky,
episode that's
which is
10 minutes of a good episode.
Yeah.
10 minutes of a good episode and then 1 minute of a SpongeBob episode.
It's it this is like one of the last episodes of the season. It's got some really good Patrick stuff, it's got some good Krabs stuff, some good Squidward stuff there. I feel like this is, in my opinion, one of the most emblematic SpongeBob season 1 episodes.
I think that's fair.
It's one of the most
It's a
season
very-
1 feeling to me. If that makes any sense.
I think I get where you're coming from.
It's got a lot of good bits. It's
Has like a very interesting premise that takes advantage of the environment.
It's
mhm.
another really good Patrick episode.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's got maybe the worst ending of any cartoon ever made. Hooky, boating school now.
Boating school. This
Boating
is
School, this is a very this is like the poster child for like above average episodes to me. It's got our
Yeah,
best
it's
friend
like-
Mrs. Puff.
it's like the baseline of okay, if it's better than this one, it's probably a 5.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Like it's a 5 to me, but like barely. But I do
right.
think it's good. It's Mrs. Puff. We love Mrs. Puff in this house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have some fun Patrick bits. I love Patrick seemingly not realizing they're cheating.
The really good pants bit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's just a
Like-
really solid episode. It's got what you look for in an episode, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being Mrs. Puff.
Arg.
I like
Arg.
this one. I think it just has
Yeah.
some consistently solid jokes. Fun little
It's-
pirate adventure. Like, I
It-
get where you're coming from about Mr. Krabs just being kind of unpleasant in this one, but part of me also just gets the vibe that I'm fine with Mr. Krabs being an antagonist sometimes.
Arg is interesting to me because it's an episode that I feel like if they'd done in season 2 or 3, they would have pushed a little bit further.
I think I agree with that. I think, like, it feels like an episode, I'd say is good, but if it was like a season 2 or 3 episode, it'd be one of the best of the series.
Yeah, like they spend all
Yeah.
that time setting it up with like the board game thing, and
Yeah.
And there's even some
For-
solid stuff in there, but it's just like it does have the season 1 thing of taking a minute to get to the fireworks factory.
I mean, to be fair,
Right.
if they didn't drive us to the fireworks factory, we would have never gotten those fryers.
It's
I
true.
love I love Mr.
I
Krabs'
almost feel like
stupid
we
fucking
could
boat.
argue that like Shanghai is like the season 2 equivalent to this.
Yeah.
Honestly,
yeah,
hot
I-
take, but personally, I feel like I enjoy the board game segment at the start more than like the pirate adventure, because the pirate
No,
adventure
Yeah.
true.
has decent jokes, but overall, it's kind of whatever to me.
No, I
Mm.
feel the same way, and I just wish that this episode would have made the pirate stuff more interesting.
Yeah. They're just gonna look at a bunch of landmarks, and then the climax happens.
I do like
Yeah.
the Flying Dutchman part at the end though. I think that's really good.
Flying
Mhm.
Dutchman is good. Speaking of Flying Dutchman, I just realized we have the two Flying Dutchman episodes next to each other.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Flying Dutchman again.
We're at Scaredy Pants. I like this episode a
So
lot, mainly because of the vibes. This episode is so like
It's so
Halloween, and it's also
nice.
so weird, even within the like. There's all the decorations. There's all the like atmosphere. There's all the weird
There
incidentals in their costumes. There's Lippy.
there is Lippy, yeah. I think
this
this
does get
episode,
the award for most fucked up incidentals, I think.
yeah, but there's no other episode that like looks or feels like this episode. It feels very Halloween.
Yeah, it's
I feel like
very,
I'm
very
still
Halloween.
kind of a scaredy pants hater, unfortunately. I mean, not like a hater, I think it's just kind of to me, but like,
Hmm.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
I just
I
love
can be
them
the
so
story-wise,
much.
hater
I just love Halloween
sometimes.
episodes so much that for me it boosts it a lot of points. Even though the
Absolutely
episode itself
fair.
doesn't have like much of a story, I feel like it's charming and just a little like SpongeBob experiences Halloween.
you say
Yeah,
that,
and I think
but
there's like a place for episodes like that.
you say that, but Teenage Gary is in Scumbob tier. That's a Halloween episode.
Well, that's because that episode sucks and is evil.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
tried to like that one because I tried to like how fucked up it was, but then I realized I just hated looking and thinking about it.
yeah, I think that's just
I try to go
everybody
into
too.
every episode hoping it'll be good, which I think might skew my opinions a little more positively.
Yeah.
Yeah. Suds, this is
I
like a top tier Patrick appearance in what is otherwise a pretty average episode, but
Yeah,
man
it's
is
a,
Patrick good
I
here.
I feel
I
like we're
feel like this.
starting. Go ahead.
Oh, you go first.
I was just gonna say, I feel like we're starting to get into like the real heavy hitter episodes
Yeah,
now.
this is
Yeah.
Yeah.
the episode right on the bubble. I want to say if there's a few episodes we've talked about how they'd probably be better if they were like season 2 or 3. I feel like this episode would be worse if it wasn't in season 1. I feel like the like
Yeah.
chillness of it and the low like stakes of it. If this was later on, they might try and do more like outrageous sick jokes that would probably like hit a lot less for me than just like the slow burn of Patrick's bad advice.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. This is one that benefits from being in season 1.
The best episodes are the ones that like take advantage of the slow tone.
Yeah.
And
And
it's the
it's one of
introduction of
our
Hans.
rare Sandy Patrick conflicts, which again, wish we got more of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Squidward the
Squidward the
Unfriendly
Unfriendly
Ghost.
Ghost. This
It's
feels
such
like
a
an
weird
episode that's
episode.
like it feels like it's on the verge of being an all-time great. It feels
This
like the
Yeah.
biggest like sleeper hit of season 1 to me.
this one
Yeah.
this one was my Home Sweet Pineapple. This one was like my favorite episode as a kid. That didn't really stack up as much when I revisited it.
I mean, part of me feels like maybe I should have given this one a 6. Like,
I feel like this episode, it's a very weird to me. It feels like it's reaching for greatness, but doesn't quite get there. I can't really
yeah,
fully express why. There's a lot of really like fun and memorable jokes. I guess it feels like the episode is honestly a little aimless in like its goals. A lot of it's just
yeah.
like SpongeBob and Patrick doing things for Squidward without much thrust to it.
I think
It
Like
that
it,
makes
it
sense.
gets there eventually with them deciding they need to bury him, but even that doesn't like do that much to the story.
it's one of the
Yeah.
episodes just like carried solely on its jokes.
It's carried on its jokes and I feel like it's less character focused than a lot of the season 1 episodes. Like, we don't get that
It
much like
does
Mhm.
feel
interplay
like
between the
low key
characters. It
kind
feels
of.
more like joke first.
Yeah. It does low key feel like a season like 3 episode and that but I do feel like its general vibes and pacing are more season 1. Like that
Yeah.
weird
Hmm.
like Patrick home movie bit in the hallway.
The
That's a
Yeah,
very
really
yeah.
season 1 moment to
You
me.
know, Patrick is this way.
uh
Now we
all
need to
right.
talk about Bubble Bass again.
I feel like
Pickles.
we've said everything we need to about him, but the episode itself, I really feel like
I feel
it's
like it's a really solid, like, SpongeBob character piece.
I
Like,
think
Yeah.
it's the first like really good one we've gotten in the series at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, it's the first.
yeah,
I feel like it's the first time SpongeBob really like struggles.
Yeah, he has to
Part,
yeah,
deal
part
with
of it.
genuine hardship.
It actually feels like an arc happening.
Mm-hmm.
like, I've seen people argue this is the best episode of the whole series, and I don't feel that way. I think
Mm,
it's, like, a little light on the
No.
jokes for me to consider it that good, but I do think
Yeah.
I think I can understand why someone would feel that way.
Yeah, I can feel
Right.
like it feels like sort of a different type of thing than most of SpongeBob in this season and kind of in general goes for. It's like feels more story focused than anything, like conflict focused. But
Yeah.
like, can definitely see why that would appeal to a lot of people. I think it is a pretty like solid episode.
hmm Help Wanted.
Help Wanted
This
is
is just an
so good.
Yep,
Like
it is a
it,
good I feel like something that sort of hit me is usually the pilot of a show, it can be pretty solid because, like, no duh, you have to make something good enough to sell the show.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
And
it
I think it really just I think that shows here. Like, it feels like once again they really know what they want to do right off the bat. I mean, this is just straight up the pilot, not even like reanimated or anything, just
mhm.
with a different opening credit sequence.
this
Yeah.
this episode here, it just feels like the most it's just got like the rawest essence of SpongeBob
It
in
is
it, you know?
SpongeBob, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like I don't know how to describe it. It's just very Hillenberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got the
Mm-hmm.
really good Tiny Tim song in there.
Yeah.
We love
Oh, the
that.
song really brings it all together.
Yeah.
One of the most memorable scenes in American animation, perhaps.
Truly.
And it has the pants room dimensions bonus points.
It
It,
does.
Uh,
I mean, it introduced us to everything in this show, so if we're gonna, of
Yeah.
course, it
we
also
True.
introduced the vital pants room dimension.
I mean, without Help Wanted, we wouldn't be doing this podcast right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So we owe it that.
Yeah.
And
Plankton.
now onto the
Plankton.
highest B tier episode. It's Plankton.
I like
This
this one
Hey,
one's
a lot.
Plankton.
yeah, this one's great.
This one's
Yeah.
another. They really they're establishing something and they know what they want to do right off the bat and do it really well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I noticed that we have like all of the Plankton episodes like really high up.
It's because
I
Plankton's really
wonder
good.
why.
That's the reason
Yeah.
he's one of the most popular characters and gets a lot
Yeah.
more focus as the show goes on.
Yeah.
This
He
this one in particular is just like really good at like establishing him as an antagonist.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
establishes his like mad scientist nature and his manipulative streak throughout the season. His
His
weird pettiness
desire
and his weird like weird record player.
Yeah.
to
It's
and of
it's
course his goal to steal the secret formula.
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like a lot of the times he's thwarted in the seasons, it's like not due to anybody else stopping him, but because of like him doing something where he can't control himself and he just messes it up for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this one's like the perfect example of it.
Mm-hmm. I think it
Uh,
really like just sets the tone perfectly for him. It sets the stage.
for sure.
Yeah.
A tier now. And
And
then we start with one I'm surprised is an A tier. SB129.
SB129 is a really good episode and it also has a little caveman diversion.
Yeah.
I
It
think
It's
it's
another
like
pretty polarized one, but it's like a lot more leading to like the good. It's very like
I think it's
experimental and memorable with a lot of really cool environments and a lot of like high concept jokes. It's just kind of
Yeah.
dragged down by the caveman humor being really stupid.
It's
Yeah.
it's like it's an episode that I rate very highly, more just for like how weird and experimental it is. It's an episode that I think is a little messy on the execution side, but like
You
I
gotta
find
respect it
myself willing
anyway.
to forgive it because it's just so distinct and memorable.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's an
It's
episode that sticks itself in your mind.
it's definitely one I'd never forget because of just like how generally freaky it was.
And
Yeah.
I
A
will
lot
also
of
say about
psychological horror.
SB129, like, I think this has my favorite individual sequence in season 1. The Squidward alone sequence is like
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
best individual moment of season 1. I wouldn't say this is the best season 1 episode because again, it has the caveman stuff, some sloppy story execution, but like as far as just raw vibes and experimentation go, this one's pretty hard to beat.
It
Hmm.
it's definitely
It
peak.
is an
This is an
unforgettable
episode where
episode.
Squidward is the protagonist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Rock Bottom.
This is
I
another one I just really love for the atmosphere.
yeah,
They're
I
very
think
similar episodes, honestly, in my mind, in that like a lot of like misgivings I could have potentially with like the story and humor are really compensated by like having such a cool setting and concept.
Yeah. Like, I've
it's
said it before, I feel like, but this is an episode that at its core is about just waiting for the bus, but like, the memorable set piece really elevates it to something special for me. And I do love how they like tie in the idea of getting lost in a weird place with like the deep sea and shit. That's like
Mhm.
a really fun way to take advantage of the show's setting.
Hmm.
Such like a,
mhm.
taking the wrong bus. That makes sense as like an episode concept. And then tying that to, oh, the bus goes to the, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just it's one of the most like visually and atmospherically striking episodes probably in
it
the
is so.
entire show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no other episode like it.
And I like Scaredy Pants. It's also like pretty funny.
Yeah,
yeah.
all the Patrick stuff for how brief it is, it all
Yeah.
lands. It's
And
just
it has the gender vendor.
it does.
Yeah.
Just a great episode all around.
Now let's go
Spe-
FUN. And say speaking of a good episode, because they're all good episodes.
Yeah, all of them
Yeah.
going forward are great. But this one's really fun because like it's the second like spotlight plankton episode.
Yeah, they really do like really hone in on Plankton interacting with SpongeBob in this season, like really get all they can out of that dynamic. Here's them being friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
You have the fun little song, and I do love how Plankton's character, where he is like trying to manipulate SpongeBob to get his hands on the formula, but like in the middle, you get the impression, oh, he really just wants to be friends with this guy, and
Yeah,
Aaron just sort of has to set him back on track.
right.
I do love how ambiguous Plankton feels this episode, like how much of this is an act and how much of this is him actually having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I think that's cool.
lets you kind of determine that for yourself.
And just playing Plankton, this absolute cartoon evil guy next to SpongeBob, who's just like cartoon nice naive guy, really just like makes comedy on its own.
That's
U is for uranium! Bah!
I mean that's like the entire premise of like Wander Over Yonder when that
Yeah,
show happened.
Yeah.
I think this episode here also has like probably my favorite opening bit in like the entire
the
season.
opening bit really, like, I feel like that moves up like a whole point. Honestly, is the absolute like wacky nonsense chase scene with all the
Yeah.
weird jokes.
It's
SpongeBob
just
just
like
ripping off his skin to reveal SpongeBob.
yeah, it's just full of like great nonsense jokes, and it just all lands because it's so fast paced. It's just
Yeah, I love
really
the
good.
opening so much.
All right, what do we got up next?
Hall Monitor. This is an episode I feel like I don't have much to say about it other than it's just pretty dang funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one where
I feel
it's
like this is the
like,
most like deranged SpongeBob of
Yeah.
the season.
yeah,
yeah,
This is him at
Yeah.
his most like ruining everyone's day.
Yeah. The open window mania.
it's got some, and like every good SpongeBob episode, it's got some great Mrs. Puff stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, Mrs.
Yeah.
Puff is here. She's not in that much of the episode, even though this is one of her solemn appearances this season, but like she's good here and she gets arrested for the first time. So really this like establishes her trajectory for the rest of the show.
Yeah, and
It
plus we
has
get
good
Newsy
Patrick
Fish.
too, so
oh yeah,
it has Morty.
oh yeah,
We get
Or is
to
it Monty?
it's Morty.
Okay.
we get to arm ourselves with knowledge.
Mhm.
And that's really all we can ever ask
God,
for.
I love his voice.
I like the whole classic bit with like the poster and like
Yeah,
he's just standing there menacingly. There's so many like classic bits in this episode and also just a lot of little small ones.
I don't like how
So
people
solid.
use that scene on the internet.
Dark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold it against the episode.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
what the
no,
episode's
they
In
for.
the
can't control
episode
it.
itself, it's just kind of a funny joke about the police officers being fucking jerks,
Yeah.
ACAB.
Yeah, very true to life.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, we got Karate Choppers.
Just another all around pretty great episode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, this
It-
one,
it-
I feel like this one's hard to like describe what's good about it. It's just like
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's super funny or just the plot's super good, but there's something very like engaging about it. Just like seeing Plankton or seeing SpongeBob and Sandy like having fun and the weird like conflict, the potential
Yeah.
allegory for like drugs or something. I don't know. I just
Right.
think it's very entertaining.
like
Yeah.
Mr.
I
Krabs'
guess I like
presence.
the kineticness of it. How
Mr.
like all
Krabs'
the like
racist
karate
moment.
scenes.
It's got a lot of energy. It's got
Yeah.
the,
Kind of like a
the
rubber
hot,
band feeling episode where it like stretches itself out, try like with the like high energy fighting scenes and like reels back in with like the low energy, like trying not to do karate scenes. I feel like it's very dynamic.
it yeah, and it works. I don't think there's a part of this episode that feels like slow and drawn out. Everything feels like it serves a purpose in the episode.
It's very deliberate.
And it's got the hot sauce, which is like an all-time bit.
Yeah.
No, true.
And it's where we learn that Mr. Krabs is Catholic.
Yeah.
Where we learn that Mr. Krabs is Catholic. Okay, now we go on to another good Sandy episode. We got like some Sandy episodes all in a row here.
Yeah.
It's Texas.
It is
I just love
Texas.
this one because I think it does a genuinely great job at just selling this different side of Sandy's personality. Like, because
like
she's a
this.
squirrel living underwater, she's gonna be a bit of an outsider, and I think this episode just does a really good job, like, selling her homesickness and shit. And it's not just, like, good in that regard, because in the back
Mhm.
half we get the chase scene and some wacky nonsense.
Yeah, I love how
Yeah.
like completely like one half to a half episode this is. We've talked about a few episodes that are like very polarized, and this one is in like a very intentional feeling and really successful way, and how it's like very like introspective and like sad with the like Sandy setup, and then like goes right like complete nonsense in the later half.
Yeah, and I think it does a good job just giving all the different sides of Sandy's personality
Yeah,
because
like
of
we
course
said, this
she'd
kind of
be
like
the one to get so hung up over this.
this is the episode that really like completes Sandy as a character.
Yeah.
It's
Flats is here.
yeah, Flats
Yeah,
Because
is
if
Flats.
Flats
here.
only appears in Sandy episodes, what do you think that means for the lore?
You know.
I don't know if I can make a connection. I just know that Smile Word comes from this episode, and that's like the greatest contribution anyone's given to anything.
And now let's move on to a worse Sandy episode, but a better episode overall, according to us. Rip
Well,
Pants.
we didn't organize these, did we?
I made it. I don't know. It's a
I
good. It's
Rip
a good
Head
episode.
Pants.
Look, let's move on to Rip Pants, and we can worry about the specifics later.
All right,
ripped
this
ripped
one's
pants is
just
classic.
really solid episode, just bona fide classic. Like consistently great jokes,
It's
good
like
story about just
it's like the fourth episode or something. It's like feels so like fully like actualized.
yeah. It
It's the
has
So many
our
like
man Scooter.
yeah,
has so many banger jokes. It gives us Scooter and Larry.
it's the first episode that really expands the scope of the series too. It
Yeah,
takes
it
us
feels
out
very
into
like
the world.
this whole new location with all these like new characters and new events. They do a lot of like different things with the location.
It's an episode that like despite having like a main joke, it just feels like a lot's happening and there's a lot of things to laugh
Yeah,
at.
like compared to something like Muscle Ball Buff Pants, which is a similar episode in a lot of ways. It's like SpongeBob Sandy. There's the kind of one joke and there's the beach, but like this one is very dynamic with how it like progresses the ripped pants joke.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like everyone laughs at it. He does it again, everyone laughs at it. He just keeps doing it and people get sick of it until he pretends to drown and that's just not funny.
Yeah.
And SpongeBob just keeps trying to make it happen but realizes he went wrong somewhere and then we get the song and the song is good and
The
it
song
has the
is great.
fool.
Mhm.
Did have the
Like it
full.
And it
doesn't
got the
feel like
fool.
This is the
I
most
feel
important
like it
episode of the
could
whole
have
show. It has Scooter, it has Larry, and it has the Fool. The
I
Holy
feel like
Trinity.
it would benefit from like I don't feel like the ending super resolves the story, but
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
the
feel like
episode
it
is all
needed to.
around good enough that I dig it.
They
And
were
Yeah.
it's a much
basically
better SpongeBob nudity ending.
yeah, they were ending it on like a dance party ending. I don't think that like a satisfying resolution was gonna come from it, but at least we got a funny
Fair.
one.
Yeah.
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 Now the other Goo Lagoon episode, beloved Walking Small.
This
Walking
one
Small.
this one has it all, I think.
It's fitting
Yeah.
because this episode has like the stand-up guy joke and it's just a very vaudeville comedy routine sort of
Yeah.
episode.
Like I said, it's just a whole like episode of like SpongeBob and Plankton doing shtick. Just them
Yeah.
bouncing off each other and like misunderstanding each other.
It's
It's just not really much to say about it. Just really funny and like with its like develops these characters a bit so well and
Yeah.
spit so many different jokes out of them.
I
Yeah.
do I remember like we had a hard time just talking about it during like the actual review because pretty much all of this episode is just a bunch of really solid and like clever bits.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. It's like it's interesting. It's like feels really bag focused, but also really character focused.
For sure.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And now we're
Naughty
on to the
nautical.
top five
Neighbor.
with the top of A tier. It's Naughty Nautical Neighbors.
So I
Yeah.
think, at least to me, this might be the funniest episode of the season. Like,
hmm
I think this is really just an example of, as I said earlier in this episode, just making characters bounce off each other and letting magic happen.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah.
how the episode sort of understands that this conflict is really stupid and petty. And so we just
Mm-hmm.
kind of get the best material of SpongeBob and Patrick.
I
Just-
I love that the it just hinges on SpongeBob and Patrick, like Squidward stirring shit and like SpongeBob and Patrick hating each other, but Squidward paying for it.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it does a really good job just selling like the Squidward comeuppance.
It's just really solid for like all three of them.
Yeah, like Bubble Stand is like
Yeah,
the first like Creo episode with SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, but this one I feel like really refines the formula.
Yeah.
We get
Yeah.
a lot of
yeah,
like Squidward and SpongeBob and Squidward and Patrick scenes that really establish like how they work with him comedically.
yeah.
And how Squidward is like genuinely appreciative of them when they do something nice for him, so he wants to do something nice for them.
Mhm.
It just works, I think.
And I think it does a good job selling, like, they're both a pain in the ass to him, so of course he wants to get them back together, cause, well, they might be annoying while they're just his neighbors. They're even
Yeah,
more annoying as his friends.
yeah.
I
The
don't
I
know,
will
I think
ending,
it
say
the
I have
ending's a
one
little
misgiving with
weird.
the episode, and I think the ending kind of isn't that great.
that's fair. I do think it does work for me just cause it kinda highlights how petty this whole thing is, that just having them in the same room for long enough lets them realize, "Oh yeah, this is stupid."
Yeah.
But I do
Mhm.
get where you're coming from. That it's, like,
Alrighty.
doesn't, like,
S tier.
resolve much.
The Elite
S
Four of
tier.
SpongeBob.
Mhm.
We'll start off with
Yes.
Sleepy Time.
So this is the obvious culmination of all the sleep scenes in season 1, which we really should have mentioned earlier. But,
A lot of
Better
bedroom in this
late than
season,
never,
and here it all comes to a head.
right?
this episode is just I think this episode's very comparable to SB129 to me, where it's like this very experimental and surreal episode, but it's also like SB129 is sort of a great episode in spite of its misgivings, while this one just kind of smooths over them completely, because it's a very tightly written script with how often it calls
Mhm.
back to itself. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
very It's consistently pretty funny. I do think it definitely front loads the best dream sequences, but like I don't think it gets like bad in the back
Yeah.
half.
Yeah. It
No.
They're all pretty
never
Like
consistently
those
entertaining.
and it never feels like we're in one place for too long.
It's
and
very
it,
well paced.
it does a good job like giving us all these different character vignettes, and unlike Culture Shock where the jokes do often feel a bit basic, I think this one does a good job giving us like more insight into the characters
Yeah,
to a
Yeah.
more interesting
degree.
jokes. It helps that's a lot more interesting things happening because they're like dreams, so like anything can happen.
Yeah.
So like they have a lot more freedom to do like
Yeah,
funny
I
they
stuff.
know
they
I
really have
said this
fun with it.
already in this video, but Patrick's dream sequence is probably my favorite.
It's
Yeah.
really good.
Just how SpongeBob is so insistent about him needing to dream about something more interesting, but
And
he's
it's
just so content.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what season 1 Patrick would dream about. He doesn't want to overcomplicate things.
He just wants to like chill. And if he loses his quarter, he's done.
He doesn't have any more quarters. This is his last one.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good, really creative, incredibly memorable episode.
Just hits all the right marks.
And then we go to a
Opposite
more yeah,
Bronze
more
medalist.
mhm.
yeah. Opposite Day strikes me as like the most well-rounded episode of the season, I think. Where
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like the most exceptional episode in any specific regard, but it's really good at everything.
It
It really
is.
is.
Yeah, this is
Consistently solid jokes, great character writing, great premise, just taken to
yeah.
a funny place.
It's just like they came up with this funny premise. Like, what if they did an episode where SpongeBob did the opposite of what he wanted to do or something? And then like they come up with like so many different like jokes and spins on it. And, like they really like take in different places. Like once they get tired of like the opposite jokes, then like oh he's Squidward now, and they do stuff with that.
I
It
This is
love
like
SpongeBob just literally tying himself into knots trying to understand the
this is
logic
like
of
the
Opposite Day.
the ultimate Squid Sponge Pad episode, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And it
It's
even has our favorite character, Squidward.
Yeah.
we love
Sometimes.
Squidward. It's the best episode because it's got the most Squidward by volume.
It
The
does.
most Squidwards in one episode award.
So true.
Another great Squidward and SpongeBob one. We've got, oh, damn, our top two are Squidward and SpongeBob ones, huh?
Well, it's almost like this is like one of the most iconic cartoon dynamics in like history.
Yeah.
Employee of the month. I just really love this one for like how it pushes Squidward and SpongeBob as characters. Like,
Yeah.
I said this during my review of it, how one of the best writing exercises is figuring out what it would take to get a character to do something they usually wouldn't. And
Yeah.
I feel like this episode does a great job both like doing that and selling me on it. Cause
Yeah.
Mhm.
SpongeBob and Squidward's character turns in this episode both do feel true to their characters. Of course, SpongeBob's the kind of guy who would overthink the idea of Squidward trying to steal the award from him. Of course, Squidward's the kind of guy who would get so petty about someone else, saying
It
he can do better, that he'd overperform specifically to show him. Like,
It's
I don't know, I just
yeah,
think
it's very
Mhm.
clever.
and
it's a
it's
very fun episode. I do think it's not like the funniest but I do think it has some consistently great jokes.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just
it
the
has,
interplay between Squidward and SpongeBob.
and as I said, one of my favorite things about this episode is like the breather after the big chase sequence where they agree to just make it a fair contest. But then we get their inner monologues where they're both planning to backstab each other.
Yeah.
It's a
Mhm.
very good reset before the episode goes off the rails.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think this just makes it feel like a very special episode of season 1 to me.
For
Mhm.
sure.
All right.
Speaking of,
And now
Season
our
one.
ultimate episode. I think this is a very
Pizza.
uncontroversial opinion that the best episode of season 1 is pizza delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's up there.
it's like it has it all. You
It
have the
does.
Squidward and SpongeBob dynamic. You have great jokes and character interactions. You just
Great
have
pacing too.
great
Yeah.
pacing. You are kind of just in the middle of nowhere, but it does give this episode a unique like setting and vibe.
Mhm.
It's the better
And
SpongeBob and Squidward are stuck in the middle of nowhere episode from this season.
Mhm.
so
Oh my
true.
god.
But it's like the peak of their dynamic, like,
Yeah, it takes them on such a
Yeah.
journey.
and
Literally.
Peak of their dynamic in season 1. I think there is one season 2 episode that beats it out for me. But we'll get there before too long.
Yeah.
right. And it's just like all the character stuff is great. Squidward, like, realistically, the only way he knows how, like, defending SpongeBob towards the end. It's nice stuff.
Yeah. That ending scene is another really great scene of season 1. Like, I think the Squidward alone sequence is number 1, but that's probably like in the top 5 for sure.
It's it really is an episode that just kind of has it all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So we went through all of the season 1 episodes somehow.
Is it time to give our
Hmm.
personal top 10s now?
I suppose.
Think
Well,
so.
we won't dwell on them too long.
Yeah.
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 Like, I may as well just go down the list and leave it at that because I've already explained why I like these episodes.
Yeah. You start
So
And
since you're on the left side of the
10,
screen.
yeah,
at number 10, I have Pickles. At number 9, I have Ripped Pants. At number 8, I have Texas. At number 7, I have Rock Bottom. At number 6, I have SB129. At number 5, I have Opposite Day. At number 4, I have Sleepy Time. At number 3, I have Naughty Nautical Neighbors. At number 2, I have Employee of the Month. And at number 1, I have Pizza Delivery. I feel like the exact rankings can be like moved around a little, but that's like approximately what I'd settle on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same for me. I'm not 100% sure, but 10 is Ripped Pants, 9 is Plankton, 8 is Sleepy Time, 7 is SB129, 6 is Rock Bottom, 5 is Naughty Nautical Neighbors, 4 is Fun, 3 is Opposite Day, 2 is Employee of the Month, and 1 is Pizza Delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Right. For my ranking, 10 is SB129, 9 is Texas, 8 is Neptune Spatula, 7 is Ripped Pants, 6 is Scaredy Pants, 5 is Hall Monitor, 4 is Walking Small, 3 is Opposite Day, 2 is Sleepy Time, and 1 is Pizza Delivery.
Nice. For me, number 10, Sleepy Time. Number 9, Texas. Number 8, Rock Bottom. Number 7, Ripped Pants. Number 6, Fun. Number 5, Walking Small. Number 4, Pizza Delivery. Number 3, Opposite Day. Number 2, Naughty Nautical Neighbors. And number 1, Employee of the Month. My top 5 is a lot more different than all of you guys's, I've noticed.
I mean, hey, that's fine. That's why
That's
we
why
do
we
this.
have 4 hosts,
That's why we
so
do
we can
it.
all give episodes different rankings.
Yeah.
It's true. And I guess that's it for season 1.
That is.
Yeah.
What are we doing next time?
Well,
Uh,
next time, I think we're moving on to season 2. So
Yeah.
long as we can get the budget for it.
Yeah.
yeah, we can barely keep the lights on in this place. It's a little sad, frankly, but we'll manage.
Mhm.
We'll manage.
I'm sure the
See you all
higher
then
ups I'm sure the
when we
higher ups
talk
will
about.
fund us.
Yeah, I'm sure. So tune in next time when we review Your Shoes Untied and Squid's Day Off.
Yay.
It was
See ya.
yeah.
Bye.